Hey guys, tonight we're wading into a story thicker than the fog, clinging to your grandpa's favorite conspiracy theories. Picture this. You're shin deep in estuary silt that's 90% fish bones and 10% broken promises. Before you ask, no, you don't get a flashlight. Survival tip: breathe through your nose. That briny stench, it's just the ocean's way of saying welcome home, sucker. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe. But only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Seriously, I'll know if you're just mashing buttons. Drop a comment with your city and current time. I'm making a mental map of where the brave and sleep-deprived reside. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum. And let's ease into tonight's journey together. Your toes curl into sand colder than a bureaucrat's smile. Each step squelches, the estuary sucking at your ankles like a debt collector. Nets drape over your shoulder, linen threads unraveling like the plot of a noir film. You swear they're whispering. Spoiler, they're not. The fog here doesn't just mute colors, it devours sound. Even the gulls cough politely into their wings. Fun fact for your insomnia brain: medieval sailors believed estuary fog carried drowned men's last breaths. Scientists call it water vapor. Historians still argue whether the sailors were wrong. The first cast unfurls, a spiderweb of hemp and hope. You wait. Water laps your shins, each ripple a tremor in the silence. Something glints below, not fish, not yet. Just the estuary blinking back at you. Oh, and a quirky tidbit to haunt your next coffee break. Victorian naturalists once declared eels the accountants of the deep for their alleged love of ledger-like mud patterns. The 1893 eel census, never completed. Too many uncooperative subjects. Your fingers numb as you reel in the net empty, save for a single crab clinging like a disgruntled intern. You flick it back. The estuary rewards persistence, or so they say. Who's they? Fishermen who retired rich, doubtful. The crab blows bubbles at you. Fair. Dawn yawns pink over the water, a shy smear against the gray. Your second cast arcs higher, nets fanning like a balg on mid-waltz. Wait, a tug. Then nothing. The mist taunts you with silhouettes, a rocking skiff, a half-sunk buoy, the ghost of last night's bad decisions. You've read the tailies, shipwrecks stacked beneath these waters like overdue library books. One even had a cargo hold full of pickled nobles. 18th century mariners had taste. The net jerks, silver flashes, a mackerel flops into your palm, gills heaving. You count its scales, lose track at 14, pretend it's symbolic. Toss it into the bucket. Congratulations, you've officially outfished Shakespeare's Ophelia. 3 more casts, 3 more voids. The fog thins just enough to reveal your skiff, a splintered parenthesis on the shore. Its hull creaks a greeting, or a warning. By the 4th hour, your hands smell of kelp and regret. The bucket holds 1 fish, 2 curses, and a pebble shaped like a tooth. You eat the fish raw, It's fine. Estuary rules. Around you, the world exhales, mist lifting like a theater curtain. Waves lick the sand clean of your footprints. You half expect the tide to return your childhood diary. It doesn't. In the distance, a bell buoy clangs. Your spine stiffens not from the sound, but the silence after. The water stills. Even the pebble tooth stops judging. You squint. Something breaks the surface. A dorsal fin, a driftwood knuckle. The estuary keeps its receipts. You stop breathing. The fog rolls back in. The damp lingers between your toes as you step into the skiff. Its cedar planks sweating fog, or calluses meet worn wood, a reunion older than Rustam Pasha's Istanbul docks. Your grandfather built this boat during the Nixon administration. 60 winters of salt wounds etched into every rib. Historians still argue whether Phoenician traders first navigated tides or just followed seagulls drunk on fermented figs. You push off, the estuary swallows the shore hole. Each stroke paints ripples that falter mid-dance. The oarlocks squeak like unoiled hinges. Did you know sailors once greased them with rendered dolphin fat? Neither ethical nor effective. But hey, prehistoric WD-40, the hull protests. A splintered groan that hums through your knees. 3 generations of fishermen swore these boats sang louder during squid migrations. You count the creaks, a rusty metronome keeping time with your pulse. Morning mist clings to your throat. The skiff lists left, always left, as if haunted by a granddad's crooked spine. Your palms blister in protest. The oar dips churns water thick as lentil soup. A mullet leaps, its scales flash like a Zippo flick. For a heartbeat, you're 12 again, stealing kisses with Lena behind the bait shack. She married a seismologist. You married the tide. A rotten plank gives under your heel, black water seeps in. You ignore it. Viking longships leaked worse, their crews belayed with helmets while reciting odes to Thor. Your bucket's a rusted paint can. Progress. The fog muffles the world, turns the horizon into a wet charcoal smear. Your shoulders burn. The skiff drifts sideways. A defiant toddler refusing bedtime. Something nudges the keel. Not fish, too deliberate. You freeze, or hovering. The estuary coughs up old things. Roman amphory, WWII shell casings. A Spanish doubloon, still warm from some pirate's pocket. Last spring, Merck hauled up a mammoth tusk tangled in kelp. Auctioned it for enough rye vodka to drown a horse. But today, only the mud's cold fingers. The current hiccups. You glance at the burlap bundle, 2 mackerel grinning like crooked pianos. Not enough for the market. Enough for supper. A cormorant glides past, neck arched like a vineyard hook. Its shadow ripples across your lap, a fleeting Rorschach test. Wood moans. You press your ear to the hull. Faint vibrations. Was that a hum? Byzantines believed ships carried the whispers of their builders. Your grandfather's voice. Or just barnacles scribbling love letters to the tide. The debate's academic now. The skiff's song deepens, a bass line thrumming through marrow. You row. oar blisters pop, salt stings raw flesh. No matter. Persian fishermen once rubbed their hands with scorpion venom to numb the pain. Smart. No. Dedicated. Absolutely. Your flask offers cheaper relief. Plum brandy that tastes of basement corners and regret. Dawn bleeds into pewter noon. The estuary stretches, a roadmap of silences. Your nape prickles. That sensation of being measured, weighed, judged, like Cleopatra sizing up Caesar while her handmaidens peeled grapes. Historians fixate on her beauty regime, crocodile dung facials, milk baths. Nobody asks if she ever tasted olive oil on a fisherman's bread. The skiff shudders, a timber snaps. You sigh. Time to caulk again. The Maya used tree sap and crushed orchid petals. You'll settle for roofing tar and a prayer. One stroke. Another. The rhythm falters. Your palms bleed. The boat lists harder. Granddad's ghost laughing in the creaks. You pivot oar, slicing a J-turn. Homeward now. The shore remains hidden, but you know the way. Same as Inuit navigators, red snow shadows. Same as crows map cities by trash piles. The current relents its hunger, momentarily sated. 3 gulls appear, wingtips brushing the water. They scream like rusty saws. You toss a fish head. They dive, a chaos of feathers and greed. One emerges victorious, the prize dangling like a diamond necklace. Show off. The hull's groan shifts key, a minor third that vibrates your molars. Maybe Merck was right. Maybe the Baltic really does have singing shipwrecks, or maybe sleep deprivation's turning you into a poet. Either way, the skiff's aria continues, each note dissolving into the fog's hungry mouth. You count strokes. 10, 20, 50. The numbers blur. Should brought coffee or amphetamines. Cretan rowers chewed willow bark, their spit bitter as betrayal. You settle for brandy. The flask winks empty. Shadows lengthen, or is the fog thickening? The oar slips, your grip betrays you. The skiff spins, a drunk ballerina. For 3 heartbeats you're adrift. Then muscle memory kicks in. Oar bites water, course corrected. A heron watches from a half-drowned pine, critic in silhouette. You flip it off. It doesn't react. Rude, the estuary exhales, a breeze carrying diesel fumes from some distant trawler. Progress, they said. Prosperity, they promised. The skiff groans, a homesick sound. Your knees crack as you stand, the world tilts. You catch yourself on the mast. No sails here. Just a broken pole for prying nets off rocks. The woods smoother than your wedding ring. Lost that years ago to the deep or Dahlia's nightstand. Who recalls? The first drops hit, warm as spit. Rain or estuary weeping, the skiff doesn't care. It creaks steady as ever. Napoleon's sailors sewed their own wounds with catgut. You press a bleeding palm to your thigh, denim staunches the flow. Darkness crouches in the reeds. The oar dips, one last push. The skiff grinds onto sand. You collapse, lungs heaving back, kissing the earth. Above the fog unravels to reveal a smirk of moon. The hull's final groan lingers, a lullaby's crooked cousin. You'll caulk it tomorrow. Maybe. For now, let the wood whisper. Let the tide gnaw. Let historians debate why the Egyptians painted their funerary boats with honey. You're just here to listen and row. The fish come at twilight, their silver bellies rippling like coin purses spilled open. You haul the net, a spider web sagging with liquid mercury. Each scale reflects the dying sun, 1,000 shattered rosaries glittering in the sludge. Renaissance princes paid fortunes for tuna hearts, believed they pulsed with Neptune's secrets. Yours thrash in the net, baseball-sized and useless. Mist coils around your wrists as you sort the catch. 1 mackerel, 2, 3, their gills fluttering like moth wings. The count stutters at 11. Always 11. A sneeze, a blink. The estuary's math stays crooked. Medieval monks swore odd numbers warded off river demons, their manuscripts inked with 13 peas, 5 beetles, 7 plucked chicken feathers. You spit overboard just in case. Something tugs the net's edge. A fish slips through, its spine bent like a question mark. Historians still argue whether Viking longboats used herring oil to seal hulls or just liked the stink. The debate feels academic as the creature escapes, its scales winking mockery. Your fingers numb in the chill. You flex them, remembering Egyptian pharaohs entombed with golden fish hooks, as if death were a weekend angling trip. Pomp meets practicality. Your own hooks a paperclip bent by pliers, still sharp enough to pierce a thumb. You suck the blood, iron and salt, same taste the Tiber had when Caesar's assassins washed their daggers. The net coughs up a boot. Rotting leather, lace still knotted. Someone's bad day circa 1998. You chuck it back. Let the estuary keep its secrets. They say a Russian submarine sank here during the Cuban Missile Crisis, full of jazz records and panic. You half believe it. Last August, you snagged a vinyl sleeve Miles Davis mid-solo, his trumpet frozen in static. Fish stare up with oil-slick eyes. Their mouths move silent punchlines to jokes you'll never hear. In Edo period Japan, chefs trained carp to swim sake shots between floating guests. Classy, but you prefer your liquor without fins. The flask's empty, so you pretend. A seagull dive bombs the net. You swat, it veers, snatches a fish head with the precision of a tax collector. Bastard, the remaining 10 glisten, a jury of peers judging your life choices. 3 generations back, your family netted sturgeon tall as men. Now, these minnows would fit in a soup can. Darkness thickens. The fish begin to stink, sweet rot blooming like calla lilies. You should ice them. Should have prayed. Should have stayed in school. Too late. Byzantine fishmongers sprinkled thyme on corpses to mask the stench their markets, fragrant as herb gardens. You settle for wrapping the catch in yesterday's newspaper, headlines dissolving into fish slime. The net folds like a lover's goodbye. Your hands ache, cracks mapping your palms like subway lines. Phoenician sailors tattooed their skin with squid ink, each mark a harbor conquered. Yours just itch. Moonrise stains the water bone white. The 11th fish floats belly up, its rebellion complete. You nudge it with a boot. No response. Even rebels drown. At least it tried. Wind shifts, carrying the reek of distant refineries. Progress, they called it. Your grandfather's nets hung like lace curtains, now replaced by sonar, and trawlers the size of apartment blocks. The skiff shudders, a relic among ghosts. You motor toward shore, a puttering prayer. Green lights blink on the docks, cyber fireflies guiding you home. Someone's stringing bulbs for a festival, paper lanterns shaped like grinning squid. Tomorrow, tourists will devour fried smelt and Instagram the sunset. Tonight, you count coins in your head, each click a fish that got away. The cooler sloshes at your feet, 11 futures sealed in plastic. Not enough for rent, enough for cigarettes and a six-pack. Priorities. Reeds whisper as you tie up. A fish jumps, its arc a parenthesis in the dark. You wait for the period. It never comes. The estuary's grammar stays broken, just like your tally, just like the stories you'll spin for the bait shop boys. They'll laugh. You'll laugh. The jukebox will play Patsy Cline. And through the salted dusk, the 12th fish swims. Unseen, uncounted, a secret between you and the mud. The gull arrives as you count coins, wingbeats frayed as moth-eaten curtains. Its cry carves the fog, a sound between rusty hinges and broken violins. You flick anchovy guts skyward, the bird snatches them midair. No grace in this transaction, just hunger meeting hunger. Darkness spreads like spilled ink, your stomach growls, a bass line to the gull's shrill solo. Victorians wore dead gulls as hat ornaments, feathers matted with fish guts and vanity. You adjust your cap, suddenly grateful for modern fashion. It circles closer, one mangled foot dangling. Seabird or beggar? Hard to tell. 17th century sailors believed gulls were souls of drowned tax collectors, condemned to eternal snack duty. This one eyes your last mackerel, a feathered lawyer negotiating payment. You lob a scale-crusted scrap. The gull swallows it whole, no chewing required. Inca fishermen used bird droppings to fertilize maize. Call it ancient protein recycling. Your dinner's a gas station burrito wrapped in foil that outshines the moon. Wind shifts, the bird's stench hits you. Rotting fish and entitlement. Medieval plague doctors stuffed their masks with lavender. Wish you'd thought of that. You hold your breath, count to 12 twice. The gull stares, unblinking. Take the damn thing, you mutter, tossing the mackerel. Talons seize it, wingtips brushing your ear. Cold air rushes into the space where warm feathers almost touched. Historians still argue whether Polynesian navigators trained gulls to find islands or just followed their lunch. Silence floods back thicker without the bird screams. Your fingers find a fish spine in your pocket, jagged as a childhood regret. Tudor apothecaries ground gull beaks into love potions. Waste not, want not. You pocket it, maybe eBay the thing later. Mist licks the dock posts. Somewhere, a bell buoy clangs. The gull's cry echoes, fainter now. 1920s speakeasies served gull egg cocktails until someone noticed the shells tasted of gasoline. You sip lukewarm coffee, a fair trade. Moonlight bleeds silver across the water. The bird circles twice more, a final audit, then dissolves into night. Your pockets jingle with copper and fish bones. One mimics the sound of wealth, the other smells like defeat. Tide retreats, exposing a beer can haloed in seaweed. You crunch across barnacles, the sound of fortune cookies meeting their fate. Ottoman sailors believed cracked shells whispered secrets. Yours just cut your souls. A plastic bag flaps like a ghost. You stuff the remaining guts inside, an offering for tomorrow's scavengers. 18th century Londoners thought feeding gulls averted shipwrecks, cheaper than insurance, dumber than hope. The dock creaks, a complaint older than your grandfather. You check the trap line, empty hooks sway like unanswered questions. Cold seeps through your boots, a sensation Drake's crew called the ocean's unpaid invoice. Lights blink on shore, yellow eyes in the murk. You count them 12. Always 12. The gull's shriek cuts the dark once more, final reminder of the deal. Hunger stays hungry. Emptiness stays empty. The estuary rolls its 1,000 tongues laughing. Wind unspools the last warmth from your jacket. You turn inland, boots squelching through the mud's wet alphabet. Somewhere behind you, a splash. A fish leaps. A gull dives. The bargain renews, as it always does, as it always will. Reed stems brush your calves, cold as unread text messages. Her hum vibrates the fog, a melody you rewound on cassettes until the tape snapped. Historians agree coastal widows often took up net mending, but none explain why their voices linger in the marsh. Water sloshes against your boots, a poor imitation of her laugh. You kneel, palms sinking into silt that squelches like wet flour. 18th century Parisians paid fortunes for estuary mud facials, called it virgin clay. Your face stays dirty, her ghost prefers it that way. The tide licks a shell against your wrist, mother of pearl glowing faintly. Tudor sailors believed these were mermaid toenail clippings, hung them from bedposts for sweet dreams. You pocket it, another eBay experiment gone wrong. Her whisper curls through the reeds. You forgot to check the crab pots. A lie. The pots were empty at dawn, much like your wedding band finger. Waves hiss, liar, liar, liar. Medieval monks wrote prayers on barley cakes and fed them to fish, call it holy telemarketing. Salt crusts your lips, tastes like that last anniversary dinner. You spit, watched over by a cormorant judge, perched on a rotting piling. 1920s, flappers wore dresses dyed with estuary algae, couldn't swim when their yachts sank. Fashion versus function, the oldest fight. A fish leaps, silver arc cutting the gloom. Same move she'd do off the old pier, all reckless grace, and seawater up your nose. Historians still argue whether Japanese pearl divers faked drownings to escape bad marriages, or just loved the silence. Your net lies slack, frayed ropes mimicking your pulse. You hum her tune backwards, superstitious nonsense from a YouTube short. The reeds sigh wrong key. Ottoman herbalists prescribed licorice root for lovesickness. Chew enough, and your tears turn sweet. You try it, now crying sticky black streaks. Moonlight snags on a beer can, same brand she'd stuff with carnations as vases. The tide retreats, exposing a plastic ring glittering like diamonds. 16th century Venetian brides wore glass baubles to fake wealth, drowned retrieving them when they sank. Your thumb finds the shell, edges sharp enough to draw blood. Basque whalers' wives burned seaweed to summon winds. You light a match. The flame dies, smoke stinging your eyes. A joke about modern arson laws dies in your throat. Footprints ahead, too small to be yours. Moths orbit your flashlight, live confetti for this sad parade. You kick a pebble, it plops into the void. 19th century spiritualists held seances in lighthouses, tapping Morse code answers to lost sailors' questions. The reeds part, a silhouette wavers. Not her, never her, just the fog doing cruel improv. Your pocket buzzes, a text from unknown. You ignore it, she hated phones. The cormorant laughs, a sound like Velcro tearing. 3 waves hit the shore, slow claps for your performance. You unknot the net, or it unknots you. Dutch painters mixed estuary silt into black pigment, called it morning brown. Your hands stain darker by the minute. Dawn bleeds through the haze, pink as a fresh scar. The cormorant dives, emerges empty-beaked. You click the flashlight off, her hum fades with the night. Tide pools shimmer, briefly mirroring a face not yours. One toothed oyster gapes in the mud, mouth full of rain. You leave it breathing, or pretending to. The salt wife's touch dissolves, replaced by the sun's weak fingers. Your shadow stretches inland, long and thin, a hook without bait. Rain starts gentle at first. You tilt your head back, let it wash the licorice from your skin. Victorian, Chinese letter, Chinese letter, Chinese letter, Chinese letter. Claimed storms, carried voices of the drowned, your ears ache with static. A lone shrimp flickers past, translucent as her wedding veil. You try to cup it, water slips through your fingers. The net shudders empty, always empty. 3 gulls fight over a chip bag, chivalry's last stand. You count their screeches, never reaching 12. Storm clouds bruise the horizon. Your fingers cramp around salt-crusted rope. Each knot tightens slower, like arguing with a ghost. The current hums against the hull, a bass note vibrating your molars. 19th century whalers rubbed whale oil on their hands to keep ropes from chafing. You've got CVS lotion instead. Same principle, better scent. Rain pelts the deck, each droplet hissing where it lands. You count the seconds between lightning and thunder, an old Boy Scout trick. 7 miles away and closing like your ex texting at 2 a.m. Historians still argue whether Viking navigators actually used sunstones to steer through storms, or just had really good instincts. You squint through the downpour. No magical crystals here. The net strains against the port side, fish hooks, glinting like misplaced punctuation. A wave slaps the bow, cold salt water down your collar. 17th century Dutch fishermen believed swallowing a peppercorn warded off drowning. Your pocket holds half a pack of winter fresh, close enough for government work. Something thumps beneath the hull, too irregular for engine noise. Your flashlight beam dances across churning water, a glimpse of pale wood. Maybe Tudor shipwrights mixed horsehair into caulk for waterproofing. Modern fiberglass doesn't sing the same wet groan. The boat shudders, a choir of stressed metal. The radio crackles, a weather alert you ignore. It's been 6 hours since the skiff's compass started spinning. Loyalty issues, maybe. 18th century pirates bribed navigators with rum-soaked apricots. You offer a Snickers bar. The needle lurches northwest toward deeper water. Smart choice. Rain pools in the scuppers, each tiny whirlpool a mirrored universe. You remember that virgin clay mud facial tidbit. The estuary's revenge seeps into your socks. A joke about trench foot forms dies unsaid. Too real. 3 gulls crash land on the cabin roof, feathers matted into wet armor. They stare avian jury, watching you botch the encore. Your phone buzzes in your pocket, low battery, no signal. Same vibe as her last voicemail. You hum the tune from the Salt Wife's Ghost, backwards this time. Superstitions cheaper than therapy. The engine sputters, coughs twice, silences. Waves rock the boat, a metronome set to funeral tempo. You check the fuel gauge, rusted needle points to wishful thinking. Colonial sailors burned corn kernels when oil ran out, smelled like apocalyptic popcorn. Your lighter flickers, useless against the downpour. The first mate's bell clangs, wind playing it like a drunk pianist. You grip the wheel, knuckles matching the storm's pale fury. Radio static morphs briefly into accordion music, someone's idea of a cosmic joke. Lightning forks. The sky one jagged streak mirrors the crack in your wedding photo frame. Poetic. Maybe. Cliché. Absolutely. Dawns a myth here, gray on gray on gray. You count each wave crest 37 before losing track. The hum shifts, higher pitch now. Begging or taunting. Your tongue finds the licorice root still wedged in your molars, bitterness fading to sugary aftertaste. Ottoman herbalists weren't entirely wrong. The starboard net snaps, hooks scattering like runaways. A fish flops on deck, single amber, eye judging your life choices. You toss it back, no witnesses. The current whispers what might be thanks, or just gas escaping seaweed. Your knees give, body folding like origami, meant to be a swan. Hands fumble for the emergency flare, plastic casing slick as eel skin. You remember the Coast Guard demo video, cheery instructor saying aim away from face. The flare hisses, red light staining the fog like cheap nail polish. No one comes. The tide laughs, or maybe that's the gulls. Hard to tell anymore. Your teeth chatter Morse code, SOS, or SOB, not sure which fits. The salt wife's voice threads through the rain. Should have learned to swim. Too late now. A wave crests the gunwale, cold enough to burn. Historians will debate whether you drowned or dissolved. Estuaries erase the difference. Your last thought tastes of licorice and regret, sticky sweet and utterly human. Your oar scrapes something solid, not rock, not silt. The fog parts like torn gauze. A wooden face breaches the surface, carved lips crusted with mussels, eye sockets crawling with shore crabs. 19th century clipper ships mounted figureheads to scare off drowned spirits. This one seems to welcome them. You lean over the skiff's edge, cold brine sloshing your sleeves. The mask tilts, follows your movement like a street lamp tracking a drunk. Barnacles crunch as its jaw unhinges, a sound like walnuts under tires. Historians still argue whether ship figureheads represented guardian deities or just rich captains' egos. Neither theory explains the kelp braided through this one's hair. A fiddler crab waves its oversized claw, tiny reel, a state agent offering guided tour. You break off a barnacle cluster. It bleeds ochre sludge down your wrist. Medieval Baltic traders used barnacle shells as currency until someone realized they weren't rare. The mask exhales, rotten egg stench clinging to your nostrils. Gas or malice? Unclear. The tide tugs your boat sideways. You grab the oars too fast. Blisters pop, stinging worse than tequila shots. Carved eyes swivel, tracking each wince. Not today, you mutter, as if ghosts respect office hours. A sea lettuce frond slaps your cheek, the estuary's version of a spitball. Barnacle lips quiver, whispering in clicks and glottal stops. You hum a pop song to drown it out. Bad strategy. The mask harmonizes off-key, sounds like a kazoo quartet at a funeral. Victorian sailors believed singing confused malevolent spirits. They never met this bitchy artifact. Something brushes your ankle under the boat, too fleshy for seaweed. You kick blindly, foot meeting rubbery resistance. The mask laughs, a wet gurgle from its rusted throat. 16th century Japanese divers wore shark liver amulets against sea monsters. You've got gym socks and regret. Shadows coil in the water below, eels or hair, or both. The mask's brow furrows, splinters raining like dead eyelashes. You scoop a drowned bee from the bilge, tiny body fuzzy and still. Burial at sea feels mandatory. Storm debris clings to the mask's cheeks, plastic bags shimmering like scales. A mylar balloon wrapper reads Happy 8th birthday, fading as you watch. Historians will never catalog this. The estuary's archives dissolve by noon. The sun bleeds through clouds, one desperate ray. Carved features soften, might have been a woman's face once, or a bear's, or something that forgot its original shape. You touch the water, draw a half-circle wave. The mask mimics the gesture, wooden fingers crumbling mid-arc. A diesel horn drones in the distance, container ship cutting through deeper channels. The The mask sinks abruptly, leaving only ripples and a spiral shell. It looks expensive. You let it stay, treasures lighter when someone else carries it. Your knees unlock, legs spaghetti wet. 3 jellyfish pulse near the surface, translucent umbrellas closing against the light. You count their tendrils, 11, 14. No math drowns here. The oar dips, stirs the water milky. One last bubble rises where the mask sank, a perfect ring. It pops against the hull, whispering next time or never again. Hard to tell with estuary ghosts. You row shoreward, back burning, hands singing the old songs. The anchor catches, a jagged jerk that nearly throws you overboard. Rope burns bloom across your palms, fresh tattoos for your stupidity. You peer into the murk. Something bone-white glimmers 10 feet down. Not the smooth curve of a river clam, too straight, too wrong. Estuary mud sucks at the anchor like a drunk with a toothpick. You haul anyway, muscles screaming in languages you don't recognize. 17th century sailors weighted corpses with cannonballs to stop ghosts from floating home. This feels heavier. The thing surfaces with a wet gasp. A femur, maybe human, maybe not. Split lengthwise, gnaw marks scoring the marrow channel. Cold seeps through your gloves. Medieval butchers tossed animal bones here during Lent. Historians still argue if it was piety or lazy disposal. This one's newer. A shrimp darts into the bone's hollow, tenant claiming squatter's rights. You kneel, skiff tilting, as you weigh your life choices. 87% of riverbed skeletons are accidental drownings. The other 13%, the estuary keeps receipts. Something tickles your wrist, a strand of kelp or hair. You flick it off too fast. The bone slips, plunges back into the gloom. The water ripples, forming a face that might be laughing. Rain patters hundreds of tiny anchors, dragging the surface down. You fumble for the oars, blisters reopening like cursed roses. A glint catches your eye, another bone fragment caught in the anchor fluke. Rib, collarbone, nature's Rorschach test. 19th century phrenologists stole sailors' skulls to study seafaring intelligence. Their findings: 0 answers, 3 lawsuits. You prod the fragment with your boot. It disintegrates like sugar in tea. Mud bubbles erupt, brown and iridescent. The estuary belches rotten cabbage and diesel. High tide's coming. You know you should leave. Instead, you lean closer like a kid poking a dead jellyfish. The bone resurfaces, this time with friends. A knobby spine segment, vertebrae strung like cursed pearls. 4 ribs fanning outward, a fossilized hand giving the middle finger. You snort. The estuary's humor hasn't evolved since the Bronze Age. A crab sidles onto the spinal column, rides it like a decrepit carnival ride. Its claws click. Memento, Maury meets TikTok unboxing video. You hum the Jaws theme badly. The crab flips you off and scuttles away. Lightning fractures the sky, not a storm, just the power plant across the bay. The bones fluoresce, cheap glow stick green. 70s factory waste or eldritch signage. Why not both? Your knife pries at the anchor's rusted hinge. Flakes scatter like dandruff. One bone fragment sticks to the blade, magnetic or spiteful. You hold it to the sickly light. Tiny etchings swirl fishhooks and stick figures. Pre-Viking traders carved maps into animal bones, directions to fresh water, maybe burial sites. This looks like a toddler's crayon rebellion. You pocket it. Bad decision. Number 47 today. The estuary growls, waves slapping the hull like open palms. You heave the anchor, its chain whining through the roller. Bones spiral downward, reassembling into nothing you want to name. 3 breaths. 4. The skiff drifts, unanchored in every sense. A fingernail-sized shell rests by your foot, coffin-shaped. You let it lie. Some doors aren't yours to open. Rain halts, silence smudging the air. Across the water, a heron spears an eel, swallows it whole. You rub the bone chip in your pocket, edges sharp enough to draw blood. Historians will call this artifact recovery. You call it borrowing trouble with interest. The tide turns, pushing you toward shore. Mudflat gases erupt in your wake, wet firecrackers farewell. By dawn, the bones will sink deeper. By dusk, new ones will surface. The estuary's favorite game. Your thumb finds the knife notch, edge biting the callus. That chip in your pocket hums, audible or imagined. Doesn't matter. You row anyway, each stroke erasing the question. Twilight bleeds, silver waves gnaw at your blistered palms. 3 days without rest, salt crystallizes in your eyelashes. The moon hangs, a peeled orange glowing through cheesecloth clouds. You count knots in the rigging. 11, 12, no, start again. Driftwood bumps the hull, a warped plank whispering against the fiberglass. 18th century lighthouses used petrified logs as foundation stones, their resin fused with crushed shells. This one's newer, yellow paint flaking from a Cyrillic M vodka brand or military code. The sea doesn't say. Your thumbnail picks at the bone chip, still nested in your pocket since Section 8. It thrums, a tuning fork pressed to rotten teeth. Delirium. Probably. You lick salt from cracked lips, tastes like the estuary's mocking laugh. A wave slaps the skiff. Cold spray baptizes your sunburn. You grab the plank, fingers slipping on algae. Historians still argue whether Polynesian navigators used driftwood patterns to chart currents. Right now, you'd trade it all for a Snickers. The plank tilts, water sluicing off its edge. Carved letters surface. Enyete, Russian for no. You snort. The universe's sense of humor hasn't improved. Another wave, the plank spins, revealing de'a on the flip side. Yes, make up your mind, you rasp. Voice graveled from disuse, or the 40 bounty cigarettes in your oilskin pouch. The plank bobs away, answer withdrawn. Midnight wind riffles the water, playing your sail like a kazoo. You fumble with the rigging, knots blurring into sailors' braids. 17th century navies banned knot tying during lunar eclipses, fear of binding the moon. Superstition sticks better than epoxy. Something brushes your ankle kelp or fingers. You kick hard. The bone chip gouges your thigh through denim. Blood beads, black opals in moonlight. 14 hours since last food. 33 since coherent thought. Stars smear Van Gogh's Starry Night on a malfunctioning projector. You count them backward, 98, 97 wait. Did Phoenicians really navigate by smelling distant shores? The plank said en yete, or de'a. You've forgotten. A shape emerges ahead raft. Whale carcass. Your mind serves up 2 options. 1, investigate and die horribly. 2, row away and die bored. You choose door number 3, spit in the wind and grab the oars. Blisters burst, a bouquet of salt roses blooming on your palms. 19th century clipper crews rubbed gunpowder into open wounds. You settle for curses and a near-empty canteen. The shape resolves, a refrigerator door. Handle rusted off. Interior shelves sprouting mussels. You laugh. The jagged sound startles a passing cormorant. Tide reclaimed appliances. The ocean's version of modern art installations. Moonlight catches the bone chip glowing faint as a dying firefly. You press it to your tongue. Cold iron taste. 70s paranormal journals claimed driftwood could transmit messages between shipwrecks. You've got better signal strength with a potato. Dawn sketches the horizon, pencil gray smudges. Your eyelids scrape like sandpaper. Sleep deprivation does odd things. Time folds, memories glitch. That morning in Marseille, no. Mombasa, wait, when did you last see land? A bottle floats by, label bleached blank. Inside, a scorpion fish preserved in vodka, its spines flex, still alive. Delusion or Darwin Award candidate. You let it pass. 3 days without sleep teaches you don't poke the weird stuff. The bone chip vibrates, no, that's your hands shaking. You clamp them between your knees. Vikings soaked driftwood in urine to find north ammonia reacting with mineral deposits. Modern survival guides suggest using a wristwatch. You suggest NY quill and a time machine. Something thumps beneath the boat, rhythmic, insistent. The refrigerator door circles back, persistent as a tinder match. You heave an oar overhead, ready tobat the thing away. The de'a gleams mocking white paint. Your swing falters. The oar clips the plank, sending it spinning. A crack splits the silence, wood splintering. Inside the hollow, a nest of baby eels writhing in plastic wrap. Their translucence recalls the bone chip, same sickly sheen. You freeze, childhood memory surfaces, poking a wasp nest with a stick. Same outcome here. Maybe. The eel's pulse, bioluminescent larvae spelling SOS in Morse code. Or maybe you're just hallucinating kindergarten phonics. Tide shifts, the skiff lurches sideways. Eels spill into the water, liquid mercury, slipping through cracks in reality. One brushes your oar, leaving a phosphorescent smear. 18th century sailors called these witch trails. Scientists call it algae bloom. You call it the estuary's final taunt. The bone chip burns now, pocket hot enough to brand denim. You fling it overboard, TRAJECTORY, Chinese letter, ING, in a feeble arc. It sinks glowing green until the depths snuff it out. Ancient traders used bone maps to avoid sea monsters. You've just cursed your own voyage, probably. 3. Jellyfish surface. Moon jellies pulsing like discarded condo lights. Their tendrils trail through the refrigerator doors, shattered remains. The Nyete side floats upright, final judgment rendered. Your head dips, chin hitting collarbone. The cormorant returns, perches on the bow. It stares, beady eyes reflecting your hollowed face. Tell my ex-wife I tried, you slur. The bird coughs up a sardine head and leaves. Dawn proper now, the sky a watercolor bruise. You count breaths instead of stars. 7, 8, 9. The numbers unravel, spin into nothing. Sleep comes sudden as a gut punch, body folding over the oarlock. In your dream, the bone chip speaks. It recites Shakespeare in Greenlandic, a language you've never heard, but somehow understand. The estuary applauds with a million clamshell hands. You wake to waves, slapping your temples, skiff beached on a mudflat. The tide retreated hours ago, stranding you in lukewarm silt. Blisters have crusted over improvised armor. The cormorant watches from a crumbling pier. Standing takes 3 attempts, legs rebelling like drunken sailors. The bone chip winks from the mud, patient as a landmine. You leave it. Some debts aren't worth collecting. Shoreline reeks of stranded kelp and diesel. Your footprints fill with water behind you, amygdala-shaped puddles. Sleep claws at your spine, jellyfish tendrils in the cerebellum. The pier creaks, a silhouette at its far end. Too small, too still, you knuckle your eyes, vision swims. When you look again, there's only wind-chased litter skittering across the planks. 19th century opium dens sold driftwood tea for visions. You've got the same results for free, subpar hallucinations, and a migraine. The bone chip glints, a semaphore from the mud. You turn inland. 3 crows dismantle a dead gull, their feast soundtracked by distant highway noise. The skiff remains beached, patient as a dog awaiting its walk. Sleep waits too, a hole in the air ready to swallow you whole. You count steps toward the dunes, 26, 27, 20. Blackness swallows the numbers before you finish. 3 days without sleep turn the world into wet origami edges, folding where they shouldn't. You count rust spots on the beached skiff, 37, 38, 39. No, start over. The cormorant watches, avian parole officer, tracking your every stumble. Driftwood pulses in the shallows, tideless jigsaw pieces from a ship called Delusion. 18th century sailors believed red wood carried plague, burned entire cargoes off Madagascar. This piece bleeds sap like molasses, dripping into shapes that almost spell help. Your tongue swells, cotton wad soaked in brine. Medieval monks deprived themselves of sleep to see God's face. All you're seeing are fractal patterns in the mud, the estuary's shitty screensaver. A tin can rolls past former home of Bulgarian beet salad. 70s survival manuals suggested using such cans as fish traps. You kick it toward the cormorant. Good luck with that. Shadows twist in peripheral vision, dancing the tarantella on quicksand. You blink hard. 19th century neurologists documented waking dreams in lighthouse keepers' minds, unraveling from solitude. Your diagnosis: grade A fuckery with a side of bonus hallucinations. Blisters whisper under your shirt, secret meetings of irritated skin. You scratch, nails coming away, flecked with salt and regret. Historians still argue whether Roman sentries drank lead-laced wine to stay awake. You've got a better plan, chewing pilfered coffee beans until your jaw locks. The bone chip reappears lodged between two rocks. Glows faintly, Kmart version of Excalibur. You prod it with a stick. It rolls into a tide pool. Ripples form spiral glyphs, either a warning or the ocean's doodle notebook. Wind carries voices, not the salt wife's this time. Deeper, grainier. A chorus chanting numbers in Dutch. Dutch. Your resume says you failed high school languages, yet here you are decoding maritime insurance fraud circa 1623. Sand shifts, revealing a beer bottle cap. 1912, patent office stamp still visible. Collectors would pay $5 for this if you weren't busy impersonating a shipwrecked raccoon. Your knees buckle. 4-point landing, hands sinking into muck that bubbles like demonic oatmeal. 3 days ago, this would have grossed you out. Now, free mud mask. A crab side-eyes you from its whole claws poised for a bad Yelp review. You toss it the last coffee bean and olive branch. It retreats your piece, offering rolling after it. Laughter echoes yours, but distorted, slurred, stolen. Hunger turns even giggles into hostage situations. 19th century asylum menus featured calming porridge laced with opium. You'd kill for a bowl, extra poppy seeds, please. The bone chip surfaces again, nestled in a crab shell. It hums jingle bells in minor key. You sigh. Pirates reportedly used coated bone carvings to mark treasure sites. This one's either priceless or a horrific STD metaphor. Sunlight stabs through clouds, raking the estuary with Hitchcockian shadows. You count 12 shades of gray before the migraine hits. Renaissance painters needed 40 pigments for stormscapes. Nature works cheaper, just add misery. Mud sucks at your boots, each step a divorce settlement. The cormorant flies ahead, tracing a path toward dunes. Follow or collapse. Your legs choose for you, staggering forward like drunk marionettes. Something crunches underfoot. Not shells. Eyeglasses, tortoiseshell frames. One lens cracked. 1940s prescription. You wipe grime off, look through the good lens. The dunes warp into a sepia postcard, soldiers marching where seagulls stand. Saliva thickens, you spit, but the wind whips it back. Welcome to the world's worst facial. 14th century plague doctors would nod approvingly at your stench. The bone chip waits ahead, embedded in a rotting fish. Flies lift in a buzzing veil as you approach. You mutter, "Not today." Satan, veering left toward a crumbling shack. Roof sags like a tired lung. Door hangs open, one hinge screaming. Inside smells of mildew and failed ambitions. A rusty bed frame, no mattress. Walls papered with 1978 tax forms. Perfect. You collapse against rotting floorboards. The cormorant perches on the windowsill, judge, jury, executioner. Sleep comes not as a thief, but as a bulldozer. Dreams drag you under. You're reciting the periodic table to a jury of starfish. Their verdict: guilty of existing. The salt wife floats by spelling repent in heron footprints. Dawn leaks through cracks, striping your arm with prison bar shadows. The bone chip winks from the floor, nestled beside a mouse skull. You pocket it. Some debts demand payment. Outside, tide returns, licking the shack's foundations. The skiff's gone. Driftwood too. Only the cormorant remains, preening atop a submerged TV. Screen flashes static, ancient sitcom laugh, track drowned in silt. You count breaths, knots, missed opportunities. The numbers stick this time, hitching a ride on the wind. Each one a mile marker on the road to nowhere. The first misshape looks like your mother, hunched shoulders, that cabbage rose bonnet. Blink once. It's just a splintered piling, crowned with kelp. But then movement. A small frame on the distant pier, arm raised not in greeting, but as if weighted. You row, oars fighting the current's lazy shrug. 19th century piers hid trapdoors for dumping smuggled goods. Iron hinges still screech when storms roll in. This one's no different. Its planks yawn like broken teeth. Historians still argue whether these structures fostered trade or just gave poets something mournful to describe. Closer now. The child wears a wool coat wrong for the season, buttons gleaming like wet eyes. You count 7, one missing. Their face stays blurred, a smudged fingerprint. Twins drowned here in 1923. Newspapers called them the Estuary cherubs, but you don't speak that aloud. Hey, your voice cracks, barnacled and pathetic. The arm drops. They step backward, no, float backward. Shoelaces untied, always untied. Fog thickens, a sailmaker's needle stitching the air shut. One last push, boat grinds against barnacles. You vault onto slime-slick wood. The pier lists drunk on its own rot. Your boots sink into gaps where coins once fell through, tourist wishes turned into rust. The child's 10 paces ahead, not running, not breathing. You notice their socks, striped red and white, like the candy canes your uncle peddled before his fishing accident. Too late now. Weight, hands out, empty. Universal idiot gesture. They turn, chin tilted up. No face, just sunlight through a colander. You freeze, stock, still as the stuffed owls in Brighton's abandoned camera obscura. Wind shifts. Rot blooms, a sweetness that puckers your gums. The child points east, where dawn pretends to rise. You follow the gesture, waving reeds, a cormorant's hunched back. Classic misdirection. Turn back, they're gone. just a raincoat tangled in driftwood, dull plaid moth-eaten. You kick it. Something clinks. A harmonica crusted with sea warts. Blow, it wheezes 3 blind mice. For half a heartbeat, laughter. High, bright, cruel. Then the fog exhales, dousing every sound but the Pier's arthritic creaks. You pocket the harmonica. Souvenir or curse? Check back in 3 nightmares. Ebb tide pulls at the skiff, ungluing it from the muck. You leap aboard, knees barking. The raincoat unravels in the water, plaid threads spelling look before dissolving. Yeah, real subtle. Rowing home, you hum the lullaby your salt wife hated. The harmonica warms in your pocket. Or maybe that's just hypothermia. Victorian ghost hunters used to weigh corpses. Believed souls lingered if the body felt too light. Your ribs hollow out a little more with each stroke. Dawn bleeds through, weak tea steeping in a cracked cup. The Pier's a charcoal smudge now. You count the missing button on the harmonica, 8 holes, 7 notes. The equation never balances. Sleep comes sudden, a sucker punch to the cerebellum. Dream of small hands braiding your hair too tight. Of a voice whispering, you didn't really look. Of sinking into mud that tastes like birthday cake. Wake to the cormorant's beak, tapping your forehead, Morse code for idiot. The harmonica's gone. So's the skiff's left oar. You spit estuary grit. It draws a perfect spiral on the water. Later at market, a fishwife eyes your catch, 3 eels and a shoe. Heard the Piers singing again, she says, coins clinking. You shrug. Just the wind. Her smirk says she knows you're lying. Dockworkers mutter about a girl in a red-striped sock. You pretend not to hear. Pretend not to pocket a stray button from the gutter. Cold brass settles under your tongue like a sacrament. Night falls, thick and syrupy. The harmonica's back on your windowsill. You don't question it. Some questions cost too much. Outside, tide nuzzles the shore, endless, hungry, patient. Always patient. The market stink hits first, salt crust and fish guts fermenting under the sun. Your eels barely twitch in their brine-soaked crate. One loops itself into a noose. The shoe sits apart, a scuffed leather tombstone. Edwardian fishwives used to pin cod tongues to their shawls for luck. Now they just spit between your feet. A man prods your catch fingers studded with copper rings. 3 coins for the lot. His breath smells of pickled walnuts. You counter with 5. He laughs, a sound like gravel in a tin bucket. That boot's worth more than your face. Fair point. Coins change hands, cold enough to leach warmth through your palm. Tudor traders believed chilled metal betrayed cursed silver. You bite one anyway, leaving toothprints in soft ore. Tastes like despair, you mutter. The fishwife across the aisle hacks eel, heads into a bucket, her blade hitting bone in time with your heartbeat. Stalls hawk mysteries, dried starfish labeled mermaid purses, clamshells cradling questionable pearls. A crone offers eelskin wallets, guaranteed to make creditors forget you. But her grin shows 3 teeth and a lie. Historians still argue whether Marseille's medieval fish markets doubled as spy drop points. All those gull guts hiding coded letters. Your pockets jingle as you walk, a sad symphony, the harmonica's back tucked behind your ear like a pencil. Blow softly, it emits a wet gurgle. A toddler points and screams. Their mother crosses herself, knuckles white, on a garlic braid. Down the wharf, boatmen unload glistening hauls. Mackerel flash like betrayal. Your stomach growls. Time was. Fishermen paid tavern tabs with dried bladderwrack. Now it's all copper and side eyes. You trade 2 coins for a smoked herring. The vendor wraps it in yesterday's broadsheet. Headline snags your eye. Local man's SOCKS vanish in broad daylight. The woodcut shows striped hosiery flying like startled geese. You chew slower. 13 chews per bite, a habit from your fever summer. The fishwife materializes beside you, reeking of ambergris and envy. Heard you met the Pier's little gremlin. Her voice carves through market noise, sharp as a filleting knife. You shrug, a gesture turned art form. Her laugh rattles. My great uncle saw her too, 1908. She leans closer, lichen, perfume overwhelming. Told the coppers she handed him a conch full of his own teeth. Wind shifts, carrying the reek of low tide. Somewhere, a church bell chokes on 11 o'clock. Your herring sits heavy, a lead weight in vinegar. A boy tugs your sleeve, all elbows and desperation. Mum says, give you this. He thrusts a brown paper parcel at your chest. Inside, 7 buttons. 1 gleams brass, speckled with sea warts. Wears, but he's gone, slipped into the crowd like a minnow. The harmonica vibrates against your skull, playing itself this time. Notes skitter, pop goes the weasel backwards. Your fillings ache, the fishwife watches triumphant. Best leave offerings at the tide line, she croons. Unless you fancy more attentions. She mimes something obscene with a mackerel. You pocket the buttons. They click like beetle shells. That night, fog creeps under your door, an uninvited guest. The harmonica floats in a water jug, burbling lullabies. Outside, something drags wet cloth across the dock. Dawn finds your crate full of hermit crabs, their stolen shells painted with tiny eyes. The market's already shouting. You count your coins, then theirs. The math still favors hunger. By noon, you trade crabs for a loaf stale, but it cracks apart cleanly. Inside, a fishhook and a lock of ginger hair. The baker swears he didn't put it there. You eat around the surprises, protein's protein. Twilight brings a new customer, velvet cloak reeking of lavender and lies. I collect peculiarities. Her gloves hover over the shoe. This from the child. You spit, a perfect arc into the harbor, from the estuary. Same as everything. Her smile could freeze vodka. Estuaries swallow more stories than bodies. She drops a silver mark in your palm, too warm, thrumming like a live wire. Mercia's Fishmonger kings minted coins with piranha teeth, or so drunk historians claim. The harmonica shrieks, glass cracks. When you blink, velvet woman and shoe have vanished. In their place, 7 buttons arrayed in a laughing mouth. Later, counting stars through mildew stains on your ceiling, you realize the eels never did rot. They've colonized your rain barrel, writhing serpentine aristocracy. You name the largest one Reginald. He ignores you. Sleep comes fitfully, dreams of coins, sprouting barnacle beards. The harmonica plays on. At some point, you join in duetting until the tide changes key. The estuary coughs up feathers. At dawn, white plumes, spiraling in eddies like botched origami. You wade through reeds gone slimy overnight, knees kissing, silt that reeks of failed prayers. A crane's neck bends wrong, its body folded open like a dropped ledger. One wing points skyward, a broken accusation. Tudor sailors believed drowning birds carried shipwrecked souls. Your blistered hands dig faster. Mud resists clinging like greedy children. You hit something solid, a rusted anchor chain from the mill riots of 1824. Historians still argue whether workers sabotaged their own barges or just forgot how tides work. The chain snaps. Old iron sings as it retreats underwater. You pat the crane's matted chest. Its stillness feels smug. Feathers stick to your forearms, tattoos of guilt. 17th century Dutch fishwives wore crane plumes in their hair during lean seasons, a hunger charm gone ironic. You pluck one barb. It dissolves into down between your fingers. Rest well, flightless bastard, you whisper. The estuary belches in reply. 3 stones anchor the grave, slag rough, veined with quartz. Your harmonica hums in your pocket, its reeds warped from last night's duel with rainwater. You play a flat C-sharp, a dirge for the wingade and waterlogged. Far off, a foghorn groans. Or maybe your stomach hungers a virtuoso these days. The tide advances, lapping at your makeshift cairn. You count waves, 19 before the first stone rolls free. Persistent little shit, you mutter to the bird or the sea. Doesn't matter. Both ignore you. A crab sidles up, claws caked in algal green. It studies the grave with stock-eyed judgment. You hurl a pebble. It catches the missile midair, tech bro of the crustacean world. Show off, you spit. The crab nods, cracking your projectile like a pistachio. Sunlight squints through gauzy clouds, weak tea spilling across mudflats. Your socks squelch, a sensation akin to walking in drowned lungs. The harmonica rasps when you exhale, Fur Elise, as rendered by a tubercular accordion. Your 9 steps from shore when the cry comes, a high, wet gurgle. Not human, not avian, not anything this side of sane. Turn and the grave's empty. Stones scattered, damp hole gaping. A single feather floats where the crane lay, now just a comma in brine. The crab's gone too. Cheater. Back at the skiff, something thumps against the hull. You brace, expecting eels. Instead, a sodden scroll bobs beside an iridescent oil slick. The parchment crackles open, revealing a grocery list from 1942. Butter, 3 pounds. Sardines, 12 tins. VE day flags, the rest's smudged, saltwater democracy. You fold it into a crane muscle memory from third-grade detention. It flaps once, a jerky marionette gesture, before dissolving into pulp. Your thumbs sting with paper cuts. Later, mending nets gone philosophical with holes. You notice 3 white feathers knotted in the twine. No amount of picking undoes them. Fishermen, off the Carolinas, whisper of bird-stitched nets that catch memories instead of mackerel. Your stomach growls, traitorously romantic. Dusk paints the water in gasoline rainbows. You gulp stale whiskey, 98 proof and spiteful. The harmonica launches into La Vie en Rose. You chuck it overboard. It floats, playing itself in endless loops. Small victories, when sleep finally ambushes you. The dreams all wings, not cranes, but biplanes. They strafe the estuary with typewriter fire. You wake clutching an anchor chain, real this time, its teeth marks in your palm, forming cryptic runes. The moon's a smudged fingerprint overhead. Somewhere, a white shape wades through marsh grass. It's not flying. It's not drowning. Just existing in that raw space between insults. You raise the whiskey bottle in shaky salute. Fair enough. Tides turned. Nets need checking. The harmonica's washed ashore sand spilling from its holes like granular shame. You tuck it back in your pocket. Duet, Part 2. The estuary watches patient as a debt collector. The tavern's door groans a noise halfway between protest and invitation. Smoke hugs the ceiling like a jealous lover, peat and wet dog. You slap 2 mackerel on the counter, their scales dull as pewter. The brewer squints, eyes milky with cataracts. Thin year for silver, he rasps. His apron's crusted with things you'd rather name in Latin. Firelight licks a tapestry behind him, faded unicorn impaling a lion, actual 15th century decor, or a roadside motel's fever dream. Spiced or sour? He asks. You point blindly. Medieval alehouses stuck to 3 herbs under the Reinheitsgebot. This guy's clearly a rebel. The tankard he slides over smells like a drowned gym sock. First sip yeast, regret, and a top note of distracted witchcraft. 3 fishermen slump at a corner table, their boots oozing estuary mud. One mutters about Saint Drogo's blessing between wet coughs. Patron saint of coffee houses and unwanted guests. You'd pray too if your life smelled like brine and old nets. The ale bites back, each swallow a negotiation. Brewers' guilds once used live eels to clarify their vats. This batch suggests they forgot the eels. Your belly gurgles a dissent. The fire pops, sparks chase, shadows up soot-stained bricks. A whiskered regular leans in breath reeking of pickled herring and poor choices. Heard of the Kurlsch curse? He wheezes. 9 taverns sank into the marshes. Woodworms ate their foundations. You nod, feigning interest. Historians still argue whether publicans diluted ale with bog water or just added psychedelic moss. Your tankard's bottom reveals dregs shaped like a kraken. The brewer refills it unprompted, your second mackerel now docked for service fees. Through the grime-caked window, moonlight carves the estuary into jagged silver. The harmonica in your pocket hums flat and sour as the brew. Someone's carved initials into the table WT-44. A crockin tentacle loops the letters, amateur sigil work. You trace it, splinter pricking your thumb. Blood beads black in the gloom. The fishermen stop mid-argument to stare. The brewer slams a plate of pickled eggs, jaundiced orbs swimming in murky brine. Compliments of the house, a lie as transparent as his ale. You spear one, it bursts like a cyst. The fishermen wince in unison. A girl tumbles downstairs, apron frayed, hair braided with cod bones. She sloshes a bucket of slop, floorboards hissing where droplets land. Mollusk stews off, she announces. Crabs ate the peppercorns again. The regulars grunt, ritualistic disappointment. Your stool creaks, a C-sharp whine. The fire dims, whether from damp wood or collective despair. Who's to say? 3 sips left. Last call echoes from the docks, a foghorn's basso profundo. The brewers polishing glasses, each wipe smearing them worse. Coinless, you offer to fix his leaking cask. He laughs, a sound like hinges failing. And I'll hire the tide as a bouncer. The girl giggles, a bright spark in the smothering dark. She slides you a bread heel charred, butterless, holy. By the 3rd tankard, even the crockin dregs look sympathetic. Tudor hymn fragments drift from the kitchen, flow my tears mangled by a tone-deaf cook. You hum along your harmonica, muttering in your pocket. The fire's down to embers, chestnut eyes winking in the ash. Dawns a rumor at the window. You stumble outside, the cold clamps your lungs like debtor's tongs. 2 mackerel lighter. 3 pints heavier. The harmonica plays a slurred waltz through your coat. Somewhere, a crane shrieks. Or maybe it's the tavern girl, laughing at the sky. Your skiff waits, nets coiled like sleeping adders. The estuary offers no refunds on bad decisions. You crouch, retrieve a shard of driftwood from the shallows. Carve WT-44 into the gunwale, a sacrament to poor choices. Salt crusts your lips. The ale's aftertaste whispers of juniper. A ND, Chinese letter, Chinese letter, Chinese letter, Chinese letter. You row toward the mist, each stroke ripping a hole in the water's skin. Behind you, the tavern's lantern drowns in fog. Ahead, only the sigh of waves chewing stones to sand. The harmonica wheezes, a single note, stubborn and flat. You let it hang, an argument with no winner. Sometimes mercies, just swallowing the bitter thing whole. The lamp above the bar gutters, a moth's wings casting frantic shadows. You slump onto a stool still warm from its last victim. 3 old men huddle near the hearth, their pipes puffing smoke rings that curl into question marks. Leviathan took my cousin's brigantine in 27, rasps the one with a squid ink tattoo crawling up his neck, smashed the hull like a walnut, his fellows nod, a synchronized performance worn smooth as sea glass. Your ale arrives, a murky brew that reeks of overripe apples. public houses in Regency, England taxed beer by the chimney's width. This place clearly pays in mold spores. The bartender slides a chipped bowl of cockles your way, free garnish for the desperate. You crunch one. It tastes like the estuary's third best secret. The storyteller leans closer, his breath a cocktail of pickled eggs and impending mortality. Saw it myself off the Dogger Bank, neck longer than a king's funeral procession. Historians still argue whether 19th century whalers hallucinated sea serpents from mercury-laden biscuit mold. You finger the harmonica in your pocket, its dented sea hole mocking your silence. A younger sailor scoffs, ears studded with crudely carved walrus ivory. Bollocks. That was a whale's carcass, bloating sideways. The old man slams his tankard. Ale sloshes like a miniature storm surge. You ever seen a whale with 17 vertebrae the size of coffins? Didn't think so. Someone coughs, a wet sound that ends in a spittoon's metallic ping. The barkeep wipes glasses with a rag blackened by decades of mechanical sympathy. You've heard dockhands swear he's the same man who poured drinks during the Hanseatic League's collapse, just better at hiding his gills. Floorboards creak under a newcomer's boots, salt-bleached leather, buckles crusted with barnacles. She drops a sack that clinks with the melancholy of stolen church bells. The old men freeze mid-lie, their eyes darting to her belt knife, its handles carved from a narwhal tusk, polar unicorn, my arse. The tavern's cat saunters over, a one-eared veteran of too many fish fights. She orders rum in a voice that could flay paint. The air prickles. Even the moth halts mid-flutter. Tudor navies issued lemon rations to prevent scurvy. This woman probably chews limes to spit poison. Her gaze flicks to you, quick as a gutting knife. You study the wall's graffiti instead. Someone's etched a mermaid with 4 breasts and a pilgrim's hat. Art or desperation? The ale's not helping you decide. The squid ink sage mutters, "That's Black Meg's girl, sank more ships than the Spanish Armada." His consonants blur, whether from fear or rotgut, unclear. Your pinky traces the harmonica's holes, silent scales absconding. The lamp dims draft or drama, both currency here. Meg's daughter drains her rum, slams the glass hard enough to crack its base. They're dragging nets off Stockholm, she tells the room. Hauled up stones carved with eyes. The fishermen exchange glances, ferrety and furtive. Neolithic carved stones found near Welsh coasts depict spiral patterns, but eyeballs. That's new. Or old, or mad. Wind howls through a cracked window pane, the sound of a widower's worst memory. The one-eared cat arches its back, spits at nothing. The walrus-ear skeptic stands, knees popping like greenwood in a fire. Focal say anything to spook honest men before the night catch. Her knife hand twitches, a reflex honed in darker taverns than this. You've read that Viking berserkers chewed psychoactive mushrooms. Before battle, her pupils suggest a modern enthusiast. The harmonica weighs heavy, a tin-plated Judas in your pocket. She leans across the table, salt-crusted hair brushing the cockle bowl. Saw the carvings myself, not chisel marks, claw gouges. And fresh, the old men's pipes have gone cold, 6 eyes fixed on her scarred hands. 10 fathom down, she adds, where the water's supposed to be empty. A draught snuffs the lamp blackness, swallows the room. 5 heartbeats. 10. Someone strikes a flint. The wick flares like a hysterical star. She's gone. A single ivory button glows on the table, mermaid, tail etched into its salt-caked surface. The cat pounces, sends it skittering into the shadows. The barkeep sighs a sound dredged from a swamp's belly. Another, he asks, though your tankard's still half full. You push it away, liquid shudders like unspoken confessions. Tudor tax records mention a Marguerite Meg Smythe, fined for brewing treasonous ale, probably just better hops. Outside, the estuary breathes, tide pulling at the pier's barnacled legs. Your harmonica finds your lips, a D minor dirge this time. Let the old men dissect the story. Let the nets haul up stony eyes, survival tip from history's gutters. Never ask why the water's watching back. The net mender's shack smells of tar and regret. Your nose wrinkles at the memory of childhood glue pots. She sits cross-legged on a stool older than Columbus, its legs chewed by generations of river rats. Calluses rasp against hemp threads. Her fingers move like spiders, conducting a symphony. You recognize the stitch pattern. Vikings used the same diamond weave to mend sails 9 centuries back. Historians still argue whether those Norse knots carried secret meanings, nautical maps, or love letters to drowned sweethearts. Tide's turning. She mutters, not looking up. The estuary slaps the dock outside. A wet, insistent fist. Nets drape every surface. Torn webs, shimmering with dew like fake diamonds. You're no stranger to needlework, but repairing storm-shredded seines feels like threading the devil's hair. She tosses you a bone needle, polished smooth as a banker's lie. Cotton fishing nets were found in Egyptian king tombs. Fringe theorists claim they're celestial maps. This woman uses twine spun from something darker, stained indigo with woad and bad decisions. Her scissors snip sharp as a politician's smile. The rhythm lulls you, pierce, pull, repeat, until your thumb bleeds sacrificial drops. She tusks, wraps it with kelp strips dried during last year's heatwave. Her humming starts low, a dissonant tune that makes your fillings ache. You've heard cadences like this in Marseille brothels, urchins whistling it while picking pockets. The stool creaks. She shifts weight to a hip that never healed right. Something moves in the rafters, not rats. Too many legs. Seine makers' guilds used to test nets by throwing newborns into them, she says, threading 3 needles at once. Your breath hitches. She cracks a grin rotted at the edges. Joke. Mostly, the shack's sole window frames a sliver of lead gray sky, weather vanes stuck on maybe later. You knot a snarled line. It unravels like a bureaucrat's promise. She grabs the mess, fixes it in 6 seconds flat. Her left pinky's missing, sacrificed to a mackerel's revenge, she claims. The air grows thick with brine and unsaid things. Someone once told you fishermen's widows weave their grief into nets, each knot a teardrop. You don't ask. A gull slams into the window, feathers smearing the glass like clumsy fingerprints. She doesn't flinch. Third one this week. The bird staggers up, flies crooked into the fog. You think of those Welsh stones with carved eyes, how they watched you back. When the last net's folded, oiled, and resigned, she lights a pipe packed with seaweed. The smoke smells of Japan in 1639, the year they outlawed Portuguese traders, but kept their tobacco. Ash drifts onto your sleeve. You brush it off like a bad omen. Your turn. She nods to the harmonica peeking from your pocket. The reeds taste of copper and stupid bravery. You play the first 4 notes of the cuckoo's lament. She freezes mid-puff. Her laugh erupts, a seal's bark, unexpected and raw. That tune sank with the Vasa, she wheezes. Shipbuilders whistled it while fitting rotten timbers. You lower the harmonica. Its holes stare up like accusatory nostrils. The guild records from Stockholm's archives mention a cursed melody. But you're just some fool with a dented mouth organ. She stands, joints popping like bubble wrap, out on the mudflats. Tide pools glint, a Morse code of last chances. Her hands brush yours as she returns the needle, palms scarred by 100 betrayals. Come back at Moonpeak. The request hangs, a challenge wrapped in farewell. You step into the drizzle, air tasting of burnt hair and distant lightning. The harmonica weighs less now, or maybe your pockets grew deeper. Behind you, her humming resumes, that same off-key dirge. You've heard variations in Lisbon dive bars, crooned by drunkards who swear they've seen cities under the waves. The path home squelches, each step an argument with gravity. Your bandaged thumb throbs, kelp remedy failing spectacularly. 37 nets mended today. 37 chances the river will shred again tomorrow. Some say sustainability began with medieval fishing quotas. Others claim we've always taken until the taking broke us. Lamplight glows in the next shack over, another net mender cursing tangled lines. You hum her dissonant tune beneath your breath, the one that sank a warship. Let the estuary listen. Let it judge. You've got calluses to earn. The fog clings like a drunk ex, hot and suffocating. Your sweat crystallizes before it falls, salt blossoms mocking your thirst. Even the gulls' cries sound slurred, half drowned in the soup-thick air. 17th century Londoners called this pea souper fog, though theirs had more coal and fewer spectral shrimp. Your lungs burn. Victorian chimney sweeps would have filed a union complaint. Blisters burst as you row, sacrificing pus to the estuary's simmering skin. Historians still argue whether the great stink of 1858 smelled worse than your socks right now. The oar handle slips, slimy with microbial goop even Pasteur couldn't name. You half expect leeches, but the heat's boiled them into jerky. Something glows beneath the surface, pulsing green like rotten match heads. Portuguese fishermen called these dead lights, swore they lured ships into rocks. You dip a hand, the water scalds. Lantern fish used to mass here every August. Last year, they came in June. Now, radio silence. Your canteen's empty. You suck on a button for the zinc tang. Tudor sailors chewed lead nails when water ran low, which explains their paranoia. The fog thickens, texture moving from gauze to wool to full quilt. You recite multiplication tables, anything to outsmart the creeping delirium. A shape materializes ahead, rectangular, floating. Americans dumped hundreds of iceboxes here post-WWII, rusting coffins for expired spam. But this one's pristine, smelling of lemons and regret. You pry it open, 2 glass ampules roll in melted ice. Medical, moonshine, the labels peeled off last century. The first vial tastes like gasoline and Christmas. Your throat numbs, vision blurs into Rothko paintings. Someone in Malmö patented fog harvesting nets in 1983, filaments to trap water droplets. You're pretty sure they didn't use pubic hair. Yet here you are weaving a nest from your own split ends. Bells toll, or is it your fillings? The estuary's one church drowned in 1607. Steeple still pokes up at low tide. You row toward the sound, almost capsize on a submerged pew. Hymns bubble up from below, muffled, distorted. Coral grows on the crucifix, now, tiny polyps preaching to fish congregations. Your left eye stops working, vision narrowing like a dime store telescope. 18th century quacks treated fevers with mercury enemas. Suddenly, your situation feels less dire. A catfish brushes the hull size of a torpedo. Its whiskers tremble, telegraphing warnings you're too baked to decode. The fog shifts, revealing a sandbar that shouldn't exist. You stagger onto crustacean-crusted grit, knees popping like champagne corks. A toaster rusts in the shallows. 1950's chrome gleaming through decay. Historians love debating mundane artifacts. What future generations'll think of our bread-shaped guilt? Footprints circle you barefoot, child-sized. They spiral inward, toe indents filling with brine. Sydney once had a pier where fog supposedly whispered stock tips, closed after 12 brokers drowned. You whisper buy low and laugh until bile coats your teeth. An hour later, or maybe 3, you're shivering in the skiff's hull. The fever breaks in waves, each chill exiling a part of you. Moon jealous bob around the boat, their bioluminescence dimmed by whatever's poisoning the bay. You count 7, 8, 9. None survive past 10. Dawn comes, a weak broth of light through persistent haze. Your tongue's fused to the roof of your mouth, crime seen, lips sealed. The nets hang limp, ghostly stockings drained of hope. You'll row home. You'll drink stagnant water. You'll forget most of this. The estuary always wins. The dock groans beneath your weight, wooden ribs flexing like an old man's spine. Something tugs your sleeve, cold fingers gripping through threadbare cotton. You spin around nothing, but salt-bleached planks stretching into fog. 19th century Liverpool dock logs mention this: phantom hands plucking sleeves during the graveyard shift. 12 men resigned in a week, claimed the child's breath smelled of low tide. Your boots kick empty mussel shells, their purple hinges clicking like disapproving tongues. You kneel, pretending to tie a lace, but really scanning for small footprints. Victorian sailors feared whistling would summon spirits. They'd stuff their mouths with salted cod instead. You hum a Taylor Swift chorus, modern wards against the unseen. The creaking pauses, as if the dock itself holds its breath. A giggle skitters past, high-pitched, cut short. Historians still argue whether port phantoms were monoxide hallucinations or sleep-starved minds, painting loneliness in human shapes. You clutch your thermos, cold coffee sloshing like estuary sludge. There, a shadow darts behind pilings. You give chase, splinters biting your palms. The wood warps underfoot, boards bowing like piano keys. Rotterdam archaeologists once found a child's shoe wedged in 1623 shipwreckage leather, preserved by peat and melancholy. You trip, your knees meet damp timber. Small hands press against your back, icy through your shirt. You freeze, counting heartbeats. 5, 6, 7. The weight lifts, replaced by the rasp of bare feet retreating. Twilight fishermen here swore the mist carried laughter, but only after losing 3 nets to the deep. You stand too fast, the world tilting like a drunkard's compass. A single pearl rests where you fell, lusterless and pocked. Pockets it anyway, your thumb rubs the surface raw. The dock resumes its chorus, each groan harmonizing with the clang of distant buoys. Night falls, a soot-stained curtain. You sit cross-legged, palms upturned. The first stars pierce the haze, Pleiades winking through the soup. "Okay, Casper," you mutter, "let's trade." You place the pearl on a piling, retreat 10 paces. Wind plucks at your collar. When you look back, the pearl's gone. In its place, a fishing hook crusted with coral. 17th century traders called these mermaid money, worthless unless boiled in vinegar and regret. You slip it into your pocket regardless. The walk home feels longer, each step syrupy. Lanterns blur into willow wisps. You glance over your shoulder 20 times, never catching more than shadows. Tomorrow, you'll blame the fever, the dehydration, the mold spores from that god-awful bread. But tonight, in the salt-sticky dark, you let the dock keep its secrets. The estuary always wins. The estuary coughs up gods today, a marble fist clawing through kelp and silt. You wade closer, cold water numbing your shins, fingers twice the size of your own curl skyward, palm cupped for offerings. Roman triremes once poured wine libations here, Neptune's tribute, to cross the English Channel safely. The hand bleaches whiter as you stare, as if embarrassed by its own emergence. You pull the cork from your flask with teeth, last night's bargain bin Merlot glugging over stone knuckles. Red rivulets chart crevices, filling ancient nail beds like blood returning. Petrified happy hour, you mutter. An urchin fisher grunts nearby, tossing his own tribute, a dented Coke can. Historians still argue whether these river statues marked territory lines or served as divine ATMs. Deposit wine, withdraw luck. The fingers twitch no. That's just ripples from a passing barge. Still, you backpedal, heel squelching into an oyster bed. 1492 Venetian cargo logs mention a limb-heavy tide near Crete. Sailors swore stone ankles rose to trip the faithless. Your thermos holds only dregs now. Sacrifices come cheap when you're thirsty. Mist wraps around the wrist like bandages. You sketch the hand in your journal, lines shaky from chill. Archaeologists found 83 Roman coins under Shakespeare's Globe Theatre last month. Proof London's mud hoards more than old bones. The estuary gurgles, a wet chuckle. You toss a pebble into the marble palm. It clacks like a counterargument. Twilight bruises the sky. The hand becomes a stark silhouette, a giant's farewell wave. 17th century fishwives allegedly breastfed these statues, claimed it blessed their nets with mackerel. You unwrap a granola bar, press crumbs into the stone lifeline. Bon appetit, rock star. Currents tug at your hem. You imagine the rest submerged, a colossus kneeling in primordial ooze. Rotterdam divers once gripped a granite toe mid-chop, mistook it for a bomb. Their laughter echoed through the shipwreck for hours. Your own laugh dies as the flask slips, sinking into the estuary's murky gullet. You wait. No miraculous catch surfaces. No thunderous voice demanding more Merlot, mortal. Just the hiss of reeds and the distant choke of a speedboat. Time to go, the statue's gift is its silence. But as you turn, barnacles crackle. The hand now clutches your pebble, a toddler's desperate grip. You count breaths. 5, 10, 15. The estuary exhales, the stone relaxes. A single coin drops into your boot, Dutch, maybe crusted green. You bite it, tastes like every bad decision you've ever made. Fair trade, you lie to the darkening water. The walk home feels lighter, pocket jingling with history's loose change. Tomorrow, you'll blame the wine, the sleep deprivation, the mold spores from that thrice-cursed rye bread. Tonight, though you let the flotsam gods keep their mysteries, the estuary accommodates. Frogs croak in uneven rhythms, a stuttering chorus of trade offers. You crouch where tide meets mud, palms upturned like a beggar's bowl. 19th century doctors prescribed leeches for everything, headaches to heartache. The thought makes your temples throb. A particularly bold annelid slithers onto your boot, translucent flesh glistening with intent. No vacancy, you warn. It ignores you, nature's oldest negotiator. Your great-aunt swore Bristol merchants once paid taxes in bloodsuckers, 12 fat specimens per harvest moon. You've never verified this. Part of you clings to the lie like a barnacle. Mud squelches between your toes. Historians still argue whether medieval dockhands viewed leeches as pests or partners, tiny bankers of the brackish deep. You peel one off your ankle. Its sucker leaves a crimson crescent. Interest payment. You tell the encroaching dark. The estuary deals in asymmetrical bargains. You whisper for sleep. The mud answers with wet clicks. You beg for warmth. A wave laps your calves colder. Silent treaties brew in the reeds. 17th century sailors wrote wills before entering these waters, their quills trembling like moth antennae. You understand now. A leech spirals up your shin, delicate as calligraphy. 1940s Parisian cafes supposedly served them in absinthe, boiled black and buttered. You flick this one away, its arc catching moonlight. The frogs abruptly stop, a dropped negotiator mid-pitch. You count the silence, 18 seconds of vacancy. Then the night reloads its arguments. Cicadas take the stand. Crickets file amicus briefs. Your thermos lies empty, last dregs sacrificed to that marble hand hours ago. The river's breath smells of rust and apologies. A fish leaps, silver belly flashing like a flipped coin. You track its descent, ripples fanning out like contract clauses. Rotterdam fishmongers once used leeches to predict storms, hung them in jars like living barometers. Yours wriggle in the muck, no atmospheric insights offered. Your knees ache from squatting. You rise, a human question mark in the fog. The mud releases you with a reluctant pop. Leeches sway below, a forest of tiny pendulums keeping estuary time. You toss your last cracker crumb, a peace offering. Truce, you declare. The frogs resume their haggling. You retreat uphill, boots crusted with failed diplomacy. Tomorrow, you'll find the Dutch coin from yesterday still in your pocket, edges sharp enough to draw blood. Tonight, though you let the darkness broker its hollow deals, the estuary keeps no receipts. Lightning stitches the clouds, a torn seam mended with fire. You taste copper, or is that the storm's metallic breath? Victorian-era rainmakers charged fortunes to blast mortars at stubborn skies, gunpowder pleas veiled as science. A droplet hits your tongue, salty sweet, unearned. The first cold kiss becomes a flood. Your clothes cling, second skin sagging with regret. They say she dissolved during the spring equinox, a fisherman's bride, trading flesh for fog. Historians still argue whether medieval widows cried, whether prayers into wells, or if that's just barmaid folklore. You picture her face in every downpour, features blurring like wax. Rain drums your skull, a Morse code dirge. 18th century sailors swore squall directions, predicted harvests. North means wheat, south means rot. You tilt your head, let liquid gravity pull your chin westward. The estuary churns below, its surface pocked as acne-scarred skin. A puddle forms between your boots, mirroring the bruised sky. You spit into it, watch your reflection warp. Her voice threads through rainfall, a half-remembered lullaby, missing every third note. Some claim she bargained with river spirits, one final dive that never ended. Others whisper she simply swam until her bones forgot the shore. Thunder groans, the cloud's empty stomach. You recall that rainy wedding day, how her lace sleeves drooped like wounded gulls. Dutch painters loved brides in downpours, symbolizing fertility through soggy metaphor. Your hands itch for an umbrella that doesn't exist. Wind pelts your neck with pebble-sized drops. An 1890s weather almanac sits moldering under your bunk. Its pages insists storms cure melancholy. You laugh. The sound drowns mid-chuckle. Rainwater pools in your collar, a chilly choker. Her absence feels closest here when the world melts at the edges. Lightning forks, a cracked whip splitting the dark. You count seconds, 1 Mississippi, 2, until thunder answers. She hated the counting game, called it ticking clocks for God's anger. 19th century, nuns measured storm distances with prayer beads, each Hail Mary a kilometer. You reach 13 before the boom, close enough to smell burnt air. The skiff bobs wildly, its mooring ropes singing under strain. You squint through the deluge. A shape materializes, no, just rain sheeting off the pier. Fishermen's sons still toss barley cakes during squalls, offerings to the drizzle widow. You've seen rats nibble them at dawn, sacrament reduced to vermin feast. Your teeth chatter castanets playing a jig you never learned. Some swear storm winds carry voices, war widows, drowned poets, children who vanished mid-tide. You tilt your ear eastward. Only static, the hiss of a million liquid needles. The rain thins, clouds fraying like old burial shrouds. A rainbow guts the horizon, its colors diluted by persistent gray. Art critics once called rainbows God's mediocre palette, too obvious for proper symbolism. You blink away droplets. Her ghost never appears in post-storm light, always the downpour's height. Mudslides carve rivulets down the bluff, nature's clumsy cursive. You peel off your shirt, wool weighing 20 pounds wet. 1860s prison manifests list rain exposure as cause of death, hypothermia, with poetic branding. The fabric slaps the ground, a sopping corpse. Sunlight stabs through, false prophet of dryness. Steam rises off your shoulders, a wraith mimicking her sloped silhouette. Children's rhymes claim storm-born mist is the widow's breath, each exhale a plea for closure. You inhale vapor, taste estuary, rot beneath the petrichor. By dusk, you're shivering under a driftwood lean-to. The wife's rain soaks through every layer, even your marrow feels diluted. Norwegian myths say thunderstorms brew when angry brides clash with sea hags, a messy divorce of elements. You sip rainwater from a bucket. It's warm now. Faintly salty, the last drops fall as mosquitoes rise, the estuary's second wave. You scratch fresh bites, skin patterned like a Syrian cuneiform. Meteorologists recently proved storms move counterclockwise here, a fact that explains nothing. Your socks squelch with each step home. At the hut's threshold, salt-crusted and shaking, you wring out your hair. The puddle forms a timid ellipse. For a breath, your reflection wears her smile, crooked incisor, and all. Then a raindrop hits the center, obliterating the vision like a gunshot. You leave the door open. Let the night devour what dampness remains. Rust flakes cling to your thumb, coppery grit that smells like a butcher's apron. 17th century sailors named their anchors Saint Christopher, Poseidon's fist, Old Regret. You chip at the crusted metal, each scrape echoes like a tooth pulled. The barnacles wince, or maybe that's your eyelid twitching, second sleepless night blurring vision. Underneath the oxidation, grooves form letters, not Latin, not Greek. Too angular. Phoenician traders etched blessings into anchors or curses, depending on the harbor. Your knife slips, blood beads where blade meets thumb. The anchor shivers. Rainwater drips down its chain, tracing old wounds. You press a palm to cold iron. Vibration hums through your bones, a submarine drone. 19th century dockworkers swore cursed anchors gave men lockjaw, jaw hinges rusting shut mid-scream. Your molars ache. Coincidence? Probably. Another scrape. The first letter emerges, a jagged A, or maybe a runic fork. Historians still argue whether Mediterranean anchors held coded maps or just bored crewmen's doodles. You cough, rusted particles coat your tongue. Tastes like licking a musket ball. A seagull lands on the chain, tilts its head. Shoo, you mutter. It blinks. Avian smugness incarnate. Fishing crews in Marseille once paid gull speakers to interpret seabird gossip. You chuck a pebble. The bird squawks, a perfect mimicry of your ex-wife's laugh. 3 more letters surface, unpronounceable consonants knotting your throat. Anchors from Carthage bore warnings in mercury paint, toxic sermons against theft. You lean closer. The metal groans, a bassoon note stuck between octaves. Your lantern gutters. Shadows leap, forming a silhouette too tall for the shed. Phoenician, maybe, or a drunken Etruscan. You blink, the shape evaporates. Sleep deprivation's cheap theater. Another flake falls, reveals a vowel that hooks upward like a fish gaff. Your pulse thrums. Bronze Age smiths drank molten metal sometimes, died with metallic lungs gleaming under torchlight. The anchor's vibration deepens, a subsonic growl. The seagull returns, drops a mangled crab at your feet. Bribe. Warning. Dutch sailors believed gulls carried vengeful souls, especially the ones that stole biscuits. You nudge the crab carcass. It winks. Okay, definitely hallucinations now. Full word uncovered, 9 letters, throaty and guttural. Your lips attempt the first syllable. Air pressure shifts, a sudden vacuum sucking dust into spirals. The chains rattle not from wind, from the ground itself. 1732 Basque whalers vanished after dredging up a named anchor. Journal entries describe a similar hum. You step back. The shed door slams, no wind, no hand, just malice. The anchor's surface ripples, oil-slick colors dancing under rust. Roman ships nailed witch dolls to their anchors, pawns, to absorb Neptune's wrath. Your boot heel grinds the crab into paste. That word itches behind your teeth now. Say it. Don't. Your throat constricts. 16th century chaplains called such urges devil's ventriloquism. The lantern dies, moonlight stripes through warped planks. First syllable escapes a guttural bark. Chains snap taut, yanking the anchor downward. Floorboards splinter. The shed's foundations howl. You fall. Rotten wood breaks your plunge, crashing into the anchor pit below. It's colder here. Older. The anchor looms, pitted surface now smooth, glowing faintly blue. That word pulses in your mandible, ricocheting from molar to incisor. You spit blood, crimson arcs onto the metal. It sizzles. Viking burial anchors were quenched in chieftain blood, steel fused to soul. The blue deepens, a forge's heart. Second syllable tears free your voice, unrecognizable. Walls shake. Distantly, the gull screams. Or maybe it's you. Carthaginians buried ships alive during plagues, anchors chained to dying priests. Salt water erupts through cracks, frigid, briny, endless. Third syllable, a wet crunch as your jaw unhinges. No going back. The shed collapses upward, boards spiraling into starless sky. Anchors aren't for holding. They're for drowning. Always were. The estuary reclaims its word. Feathers pummel the water, thick as monsoon rain. You shield your face, barbs catch in your eyelashes. 19th century newspapers called it a feathered apocalypse when blackbirds fell on Arkansas in 1864. These aren't blackbirds, terns maybe, or shearwaters. Their necks snap at odd angles like broken violinist fingers. A wing slaps your cheek cold and rubbery. Dead gulls bob belly up, their yellow eyes clouding. You paddle backward, or blades scooping feathers instead of water. Fishermen off Crete once believed waterlogged foul bones pointed north, stick them under tongues during storms. Useless now. Every direction's a whirl of down and cartilage. Something thwacks the skiff's hull. Not a bird. Too solid. You peer overboard. A lichen-crusted statue stares up. Its marble hand clutches. Is that your ex-wife's seaweed necklace? You kick the artifact. It sinks with a judgmental gurgle. Gusts rip through the chaos, funneling feathers into miniature tornadoes. 1796, Virginia's year of falling sparrows, happenstance, or cosmic hiccup. Historians still argue whether colonial bird plagues were methane bursts or God's indigestion. You spit out a primary feather. Tastes like salty Velcro. A tern carcass lands in your lap, its beak pierced through a barnacle-encrusted locket. Inside, a blurry daguerreotype of two men in Union uniforms. Civil War collectors would eBay kill for this. You toss it. Let the brackish void sort its own antiques. The assault dwindles, last stragglers smacking mudflats. Silence creeps in thick as the feathers underfoot. Portuguese myth claims dead seabirds carry curses in their quills. Pluck one, invite calamity. You snap a shaft. Nothing happens, except maybe that shadow rippling beneath the skiff, too wide, too fluid. You pull forward, floating corpses part like a macabre Red Sea. A cormorant's wing brushes your ankle. Reflex kicks, it spirals into the murk. 14th century nuns wore gull-down slippers to walk on sorrow. You're walking on a feather mattress stitched with rigor mortis. Something glints ahead, a beached trawler. No, too angular, too gilded. Cyrus the Great's lost barge allegedly sank here, solid gold oars, sapphire mast. You wade ashore, feet sinking into feather quicksand. The structure's just driftwood painted with fool's gold. Of course, the fog thins, revealing shorebirds staggering through the debris. A heron pecks at a gutted flounder, its movements jerky, marionette-like. Radioactive contamination. Parasites. You mimic its head bobs, an absurd interpretive dance. The heron squawks. Avian disapproval transcends species. Night falls. You build a fire from wing bones and dried kelp. Victorian naturalists wrote papers on feather combustion, etheric properties. They swore. Your flames sputter green, probably copper from algae. Definitely not ghosts. Dawn exposes the carnage, feather carpets stretching to the horizon. Title take M. You mutter same lie you told about her love letters. A single turn swoops low, drops a fish head on your firewood pile. Reciprocity or accidental release. You'll never ask. Digging for clams, your fingers graze metal, an anchor chain speckled with gull vomit. You follow it down, down, until your lungs scream. The chain terminates at nothing, just endless blue, always with the anchors. Always. Your fingertips brush rusty iron cold as a drowned man's grin. The anchor chain snakes upward, vanishing into pea soup fog. 17th century warships like Sweden's Vasa sank for less. Overloaded cannons, rookie ballast errors. This chain feels older, hungrier. A shadow looms 3 mist-shrouded masts, stabbing the sky. Sails hang in ribbons, tattered as the lace your mother buried in. Oars jut from the hull, frozen mid-row. Barnacle colonies crawl across them, tiny white cities keeping their own time. Portuguese dockworkers swore barnacles ticked like pocket watches if you listened close. You don't dare lean closer. The fog parts, revealing a dozen more ships. Their hulls shimmer, decaying wood blurred into watercolor. Historians still argue whether ghost fleets were mirages from rotten hardtack mold, sea scurvy hallucinations. Your lungs burn from too long underwater. This feels real. Awfully real. A gangplank groans down, splintered wood inches from your nose. Salt-crusted boots appear above. No legs inside, just boots, standing, waiting. Your chuckle comes out shrill, not my size, buddy. The left boot taps impatient. You kick upward, breaking the surface with a gasp. Mist clogs your throat. The skiff bobs 30 feet away, feathers still clumped in its seams. Swim or climb. The boots stomp the gangplank, a hollow thunk older than steam engines. Muscles scream as you haul onto the ghost ship's deck, planking creaks, nails bleeding rust like old scabs. A helm spins lazily, no hands guiding it. Cold pricks your neck, breath that isn't yours. You whirl. Empty air. The hold gapes open, a mouth full of shadows. You linger at the threshold. Victorian mediums claimed shipwrecks hoarded souls like wine in a cellar. Something down their groans low, wet. Not human, not animal. Moonlight slices through fog, illuminating the figurehead. A woman with coral eyes and eel-scale hair. Her wooden lips part, come home, voice like a whale song filtered through mud. You grip a rusted cleat, metal flakes biting your palm. The fleet ripples, fading in and out like bad reception. Dark Age traders believed veil ships carried plagues as cargo. Your skin itches. 3 ships over, a sailor's silhouette leans on phantom rigging. He tips a spectral hat. Silence shatters. Wood explodes as oars suddenly finish their frozen stroke. Water churns, the fleet lurching forward. No wind, no tide, just movement. You cling to the mast, splinters embedding in your cheek. The boot-clad ghost reappears, pointing landward with a skeletal hand. Its jaw clicks open, debt unpaid. You're moving before thinking, diving overboard. Salt water shocks your system. Feathers brush your legs, gentle now, almost apologetic. Your skiff's hull slaps your ribs, a welcome bruise. Oars snap into the locks. Row, row. The ghost fleet's wake nearly capsizes you, bowsprits grinning like bone scimitars. One ship peels off, sailing straight into coastal cliffs. It dissipates before impact, mist swallowing mist. Dawn leaks across the estuary. The water lies smooth, no feathers, no chains, no spectral timber. Just your trembling hands. And 2 barnacles stuck to your oar, ticking softly. Your oar drips phantom barnacles, each tick a metronome for madness. Dawn's light gilds the estuary, no trace of drowned ships now. Just the usual stink of crabs and regret. It starts as a hitch in your breathing, a whimper tangled in your ribs. Then it climbs, high, wet, unmistakable. A baby's cry, not the mewl of gulls imitating human sorrow. The real thing. Netting claws at your forearms as you haul it up, expecting silvery flounders. Empty, always empty. The whale swells, bouncing off waterlogged pilings. 19th century marsh diggers found tiny coffins nailed to willow roots, infants buried alone in the suck. Historians still argue if they were stillborn blessings or bargains with brackish gods. You lean over the skiff's edge, peering into tea-brown water. Something glints below an oyster shell, a wedding ring. Your hand breaches the surface, and the cry stops. Cold shoots up your wrist. You yank back, cradled in your palm, a mermaid's purse. The leathery skate egg case dangles its tendrils, empty of life. Sailors once swore these held drowned baby souls. A splash to starboard, you lunge. Nets tangle around your legs, kelp slick and spiteful. The cry resurfaces behind you, now gurgling laughter. Your pulse hammers like a cormorant's wings. 17th century midwives prescribed estuary mud for colic, claimed the river's memory, soothed restless infants. You scoop a handful, slop it into your pocket, just in case. 3 passes you make, dragging nets through reed beds. Each time the cry retreats. Each time Your catch bucket stays barren. A crab latches onto your thumb, punishment for hubris. Fair enough, you mutter, flicking it into the mist. Bell buoys clang in the distance, a dissonant lullaby. You slump against the skiff's ribs, blistered palms stinging. The cry nestles deeper in your chest, now a lodestone of ache. Victorian mediums claimed to channel water babes during seances, charged extra for their wet footprints on silk. Sunlight finally guts the fog, exposing the estuary's mundanity. Herons stab at minnows. Dockworkers shout crude jokes. The cry doesn't fade, just settles between your lungs. You row homeward, each stroke synced to that liquid wail. At the dock, you half expect a swaddled bundle in your boat, nothing but rotting nets and that stolen handful of mud. You press it to your ear like a seashell for a heartbeat silence. Then a hiccup, or maybe the estuary sighing through your fingers. Nightfall finds you on the floorboards, whispering nonsense, lullabies to your own ribs. The cry hums along off-key, but insistent. Somewhere, a skate brushes its egg case against a piling. Somewhere, a willow root cradles a tiny coffin. You close your eyes, letting the sound rock you toward tomorrow's tide. The floorboards creak beneath your cheek, each splinter breathing estuary damp. Morning light stabs through the cracks. Green fur coats your last crust. You poke it, the mold yields like rotted velvet. Sailors called this sea bread. When worms infested their rations, ate it anyway for the salt. Your tongue hesitates, then carves through fuzz softer than duckling down. Taste blooms earthy tang with honeyed rot. Medieval monks once aged cheese in tomb air, claimed saintly bacteria, blessed the curds. Your guts gurgle approval or revolt. Hard to tell. You swallow another chunk, watch spores drift like lazy fireflies. 19th century French farmers spread moldy hay on wounds, ignorant prophets of penicillin. Historians still debate if those poultices truly mended flesh, or just distracted peasants with pretty colors. The crying in your ribs fades, replaced by a wet, warm thrum. You press a hand to your belly, half expecting amphibian skin. River sludge oozes from your pocket, yesterday's failed remedy, now crusting into clay. A fly lands, antennae twitching at your fungal feast. Back off, Charles Darwin, you mutter, flicking it toward the docks. Hunger sharpens the air. You notice every warped plank, every rusted nail. That skate egg case dangles from a beam, swaying like a metronome for composting. Your fingers brush its leathery sheath. It feels warmer than yesterday. 13 fishermen once starved near Bordeaux. Autopsies revealed bellies full of book pages and moth wings. You lick mold dust off your thumb, wonder what future diggers will find in your bones. Clouds clot the sun, your shack exhales mildew. You rip more bread, green veins pulse faintly bioluminescent. Or maybe it's the fever. 18th century Hungarian healers prescribed rot therapy for melancholy. Patients wallowed in compost until sprouts grew from their hair. Your laugh startles a spider, It repels from the rafters. In silk panic, the estuary slaps against pilings, a wet fist demanding entry. You rise, world tilting like a drunkard's compass. Rot seeps into muscle now, fluids moving slower, denser. Your reflection in a rain barrel blurs at the edges, algae blooming beneath the skin. Mercenary armies of old carried moldy lemons to suck during sieges, sour decay staving off scurvy and reason. You press a palm to the water's skin, ripples erase your face. Twilight comes early, storm brewing in the marrow. The last bread fragment glows faintly, Chartres' lighthouse in your trembling hand. You chew slow, imagining mycelium knitting your frayed nerves. Pompeii excavations revealed petrified loaves, carbonized by Vesuvius, their wheat still speckled with ancient mold spores. Your teeth click against the plate, empty again, always empty. Night crams into the shack, your breath turns visible and cloying. The skate egg trembles, its tendrils curling like beckoning fingers. You press it to your swollen belly, cold and warm at once. Somewhere, a willow root cradles its tiny coffin. Somewhere, dead fishermen's pages turn in the current. Your eyelids droop, carrying you toward dreams of soft green stars. Morning finds your mouth full of moss, or maybe hope. The crying hasn't returned, just the estuary's old song through cracked boards. You rise, muscles supple as kelp, and step into the fog. Behind you, the last mold speck glows faintly on the plate, a farewell wink or a promise of rot's return. The hum starts in your molars, 3 notes lower than your voice should reach. Fog ripples like struck silk, water droplets hang suspended, defiant. Your next breath takes a year or half a heartbeat to leave your lungs. Archaeologists found bone flutes in Germany's caves, 40,000 years old, still holding dawn's first melody. You try whistling. The 3rd note pricks your tongue bloody. Reeds freeze mid-shudder. A dragonfly hovers with wings like stained glass. Tide withdraws its foamy tongue, leaving sand grains trembling in midair. Your pulse thrums in the wrong rhythm. Slow, slow, quick, quick, slow. Roman historian Tacitus wrote of a lyre player who stilled the forum's chaos until emperors banned his time-bending tunes. You press a palm to your throat, feel vibrations older than last night's storm. The estuary inhales. 1,000 silver fish float belly up waiting. Your left boot sinks deeper. Mud claims it slower than rust conquers iron. 14th century monks claimed certain Gregorian chants. Paused plague spread, their low drones freezing pestilence in midair. You hum again, higher now, and taste salt water where blood should be. A barnacle crumbles off the dock, each fragment hanging like flawed diamonds. Time folds. Your childhood fishing rod materializes in hand, painted yellow by forgotten summers. The vision reeks of nostalgia and worm bait. You drop it fast. Historians still argue whether Tudor sailors' shanties truly calmed storms or just made drowning men feel braver. The 3rd note comes unbidden, a subharmonic rumble from your collarbones outward. Waves solidify into glassy hills, gulls, petrified as weather vanes. Your heartbeat stops, not metaphorically, chest silent, skin cooling, but thoughts sprinting frantic circuits. Napoleon's field surgeons recorded soldiers surviving full minutes without pulse mid-battle, bodies obeying drum cadence instead of biology. You pinch your wrist, no blood rises, yet you sway forward regardless. The wooden pier creaks, a drawn-out moan stretched thin across frozen seconds. Movement returns in reverse. A heron unswallows an eel, vomiting silver back into the shallows. Your boot slurps free, each mud pop echoing like cannon fire. An Elizabethan con artist sold chrono whistles made of mastodon ivory, swore they'd pause creditors at the door. You spit red onto the unmoving tide. Watch each droplet hover like garnets. Rabbit fast now, your pulse restarts, hammering ribs like storm shutters. The world lurches forward. Waves crash, triple speed gulls shriek backlogged warnings. Twin suns burn your nape until you realize one, just the moon refusing to set. South American shamans still chew time fungi called yagé, claim it lets them step between seconds. You stumble, knees hitting, wood still vibrating from yesterday's footfalls. Silence returns, not true silence, just your ears surrendering to the aftermath. Cheek pressed to damp planks, you count 73 heartbeats before standing. That Roman lyre player, executed for sorcery, his instruments melted into coins, bearing Nero's scowling face. You hum the third note soft, no blood this time, and watch the horizon flinch. Morning stretches thin, your 3 casts into fishing before your hands stop shaking. Nets come up heavy, with foamy brine, no fish, just the estuary's cold laughter. Archaeologists debate those German bone flutes daily. Were they ritual tools? Or just Ice Age teens annoying their elders? Your thumb finds the groove between collarbones, still throbbing like a second heart. The song lingers, a phantom chord behind your eyes, as you mend nets in crooked sunlight. Every knot tied holds an extra half beat, threads humming with residual tremor. Tide ebbs normal now, mostly, if you ignore the way water spirals counterclockwise in your bucket. You drink anyway, swallowing time's aftertaste with every brackish gulp. By dusk, you're singing to the crabs, 3 nonsense notes that make their claws clack rhythmically. Your fire pit smoke freezes mid-curl just once before wind remembers its job. The last Roman chronolyrist's final words survived in graffiti. Tempus edax rerum, time devours all things. You whisper it to the dying flames, watch sparks hang like paused fireflies. Sleep comes not as rest, but as a consent to stop counting moments. Dreams move at double speed, kelp forests growing and rotting in alternating breaths. You wake clutching a barnacle, crusted with frozen brine, its ridges sharp as unfinished apologies. The moon's exactly where you last saw it, or maybe it's a new one borrowing the same face. Estuary birds resume their screeching, now spliced with half-remembered silences. Your nets drip normally, mostly, if you ignore the shadows, lagging a half-second behind. Historians still argue whether time bends, or just human perception of it. You hum those 3 notes softer now, a private pact with chaos, as dawn leaks across broken waves. Your skiff cuts through water and leftover seconds, each oar stroke erasing yesterday's strangeness. The song stays buried in your marrow, ready to fracture reality again. But for now, you row. Time flows, mostly. And the crabs, they never did stop dancing. The Egyptian king's coin warms in your palm, stolen heat from tombs older than mercy. Gold glints despite the fog, a sneer pressed into metal. Archaeologists unearthed a ton of these in Alexandria's harbor. Ptolemy's economy ran on borrowed time and borrowed bullion. You spit on Caesar's profile etched into the disk. Saliva sizzles like oil on a griddle. It's heavier than guilt, this little sun-shaped lie. 10th century Coptic markets traded similar coins as soul weights balanced against a feather in the afterlife. Wind snatches your hair, tugging toward the water, as if the estuary itself leans in. You wind up like a Savannah League pitcher, arm trembling, and hurl wealth into the deep. Gold kisses waves with a wet smack, sinks slower than physics allows. Ripples freeze mid-spread, a flower carved from liquid glass. Historians still debate whether drowning treasures appeased river gods or just fed rulers tax evasion schemes. Shadows coil beneath your skiff, not fish, not weed thick as printer ink. The water exhales, a wet groan rattling your teeth. Nets rise empty again, except for a single mussel glued to the mesh, its shell parts revealing a papyrus scrap inside. Hieroglyphs swim under your gaze, cartouche of that Egyptian king. And what might be a grocery list? 6th century monks insisted shellfish carried messages between drowned cities, their aquatic postal service, now academia's punchline. You flick the mussel overboard, it arcs like a comma mid-sentence. Estuary mud burps sulfur, a belch from the planet's gut. That coin, probably funding some silt demon's liquor stash by now. Slime coats your fingers, smells like regret and low tide. Darkness thickens, not nightfall, a blot spreading from where the gold sank. Your oar blades strike something solid wood, stone, each knock echoing like a doorknocker in Hades. Byzantine tax records mention liquid highways devouring ships, who skimped on tribute. You paddle faster. The thing beneath the hull keeps pace. Moonlight fractures, shards glint on the water, edges sharp enough to slit seconds. Your tongue remembers the hieroglyphs, unpronounceable consonants clotting your throat. A 1920s Egyptologist claimed these symbols could summon Sobek, crocodile god of military might and soggy Mondays. You cough, spit out a scale, iridescent. The skiff lists starboard side dipping, as if weighed by invisible cargo. You brace against the gunwale, fingernails carving half-moons into wet wood. Tide poolers near Rosetta still whisper about the day the Nile ran backward, flooding markets with salt water and screeching eels. Cold seeps through your boots, roots you to the spot. Something scrapes the hull, long, slow, deliberate. You inhale brine and ancient ledger dust. Historians still argue whether Cleopatra's barge sank in a storm or got repoed by Roman debt collectors. The estuary hums 3 notes you'd recognize blindfolded your stolen song, played back in minor key. Lightning without thunder, the submerged coin flashes once, a camera snapshot of the deep. You glimpse shadows weirder than fish, angular, wrong-jointed, trading your gold in a marketplace of spines and silt. The Egyptian king's face drifts past, smile stretched into a creditor's grin. Then dark reclaims its throne. Your hands shake, not from fear, from the afterburn of time uncorked. Nets writhe with fresh squid, ink sacs pulsing like stress balls. You chuck 2 overboard toll for safe passage. Watch their silhouettes dissolve. Tacitus wrote that Nero taxed moonlight on the Tiber, charged by the dram. The estuary feels cheaper tonight. Discount hauntings, third-rate miracles. Dawn arrives as a rumor, gray seeping through fog's fabric. No coin, no squid, no debts erased. Just the water's skin, unbroken and smug. You trail fingers through the wake. Ripples die faster than they should. Maybe the Egyptian king's grinning in Jewett. Maybe he's stuck in traffic. Either way, the skiff drifts lighter now. Crabs tap dance on the bow, clacks syncopated but earnest. You toss them a mussel, watch them bicker over shredded flesh. Tide inches onward, unimpressed by your theatrics. A single phrase surfaces in your mind. Caracala's tax code carved into a temple wall, payable in blood or brine. You hum the 3 notes quietly and row toward shore. Nets bunch in your blistered hands, frayed hemp whispering of winters past. 13 generations of your bloodline tossed these threads. Byzantine tax records prove they taxed nets by the fathom. You heave, the weight leaves your palms, mesh blooming like a drunken parachute. Salt air fills the gaps between knots. They say Celtic fishers tied prayers into each loop, though modern tests show brine rots faith faster than twine. Water swallows the net with a wet sigh, no splash, as if catching raindrops mid-fall. Something shifts beneath, not fish, something with too many elbows. The Vatican's 1587 Codex Piscatorum band, catching angels mistaken for sturgeon. But you've never put stock in cardinal decrees. Current tugs, the ropes bite your palms, loyal as a guilt-tripping hound. A bead of sweat carves a path down your neck. Your clothes stick like seaweed on driftwood. 19th century Marseille sailmakers added human hair to nets for luck. You half consider snipping a lock. Too late now. The mesh sinks into opacity, dragging your fortune into the drink. Your biceps burn linen, fibers recall Pharaoh's workers, hauling pyramid stones, same ache, same unpaid overtime. The estuary exhales fog, a dandelion clock dissolving on a child's breath. Nets twitch once with the violence of a nightmare limb jerk. You brace feet sliding on algae-slick planks. Historians still argue whether Viking fishhooks were designed for cod or cursed dwarves. Right now, you'd vote dwarves. Rope blisters weep red onto your wrists. Crime scene, patterns bloom across oakum strands. A muted chime echoes up the lines, like a buoy's bell wrapped in felt. Your pulse sinks to the sound 3 beats. Rest, 3 beats. Teutonic knights reportedly heard similar rhythms before drowning in the Vistula. Nets jerk sideways, pulling your skiff into a slow spin. The horizon tilts, gulls scatter like thrown confetti, water morphs into a map of scars. You lean back, let the current take the reins this close to dawn. Surrender feels cheaper than gasoline. The net surfaces, gritting the water like cracked pottery glaze. Empty, save a single starfish suctioned to the cords. Its 5th arm regenerates mid-watch, nubbin pink as a baby's fist. Marine biologists say starfish lack vocal cords. But this one hums your stolen 3-note tune. Knife in hand, you sever the net, watch the starfish sink defiantly middle digit up. Wet strands coil at your feet, a discarded marionette. 13th century Genoese laws fined fishermen for wasting mesh. You'd pay in eyelid blinks and side drachmas if they asked. The skiff drifts backward, hull whispering secrets to the mudflats. Sudden lightness makes you giddy. Empty nets mean no gutting, no haggling, no lies. A breeze riffles the fog. Water striders skate over parchment-thin reflections. 16th century Japanese poets compared morning tides to a drunkard's shuffle, slow, meandering, mildly tragic. You chuck a bait bucket overboard, listen to it gulp, then float like a buoyant coffin. Shapes writhe beneath the surface, not fish, not eels, their movements hexagonal, mathematical. The 1783 London Frost Fair sold tickets to view icebound phantoms. Same vibe, warmer venue. You count them 3 and wonder if Atlantis had a DMV. Your left oar snaps, rotten wood surrendering. Chuck both stumps, let the estuary keep its toothless grin. Dawn leaks through clouds, honey thick and sticky. Nets drape over the gunwale, a lace shroud for no one. You press a palm to the water, not cold, not warm, the temperature of defeat. Cleopatra's barge crew reportedly drank lotus wine to forget their wages. You'd kill for a sip. Silence pools in the skiff, a liquid heavier than river or blood. Your teeth itch with unsung sea shanties. You hum one verse, just to spite the deep. The net's final knot unravels, hemp fibers peeling like sunburned skin. When the fog lifts, as fogs do, you're surprised to find shore 10 strokes away. The skiff beaches itself, about kissing sand with a contemptuous smack. Nets drape your shoulders, a mantle of half-rotten glory. You step onto mud. It sucks your boots down, a needy lover's farewell. No fish, no coins, no answers. Just the estuary's breath on your neck, sour and familiar. Ottoman fish vendors hawked ghost catches to tourists. You're half tempted to invent your own. Instead, You wring brackish water from your shirt. Each drop sparkles briefly, false diamonds, before dying in the sand. Your pockets hold three things: rusted hook, gull's feather, a laugh stuck in your throat. Historians still argue whether the Hanseatic League controlled herring, or just enjoyed wearing fun hats. The feather floats upward, caught in a thermal, as you walk away. Behind you, the water murmurs in a language older than nets. You don't turn around. Dawn bleeds pink through thinning, mist the color of a hangnail's raw edge. You drag bare toes through silt, each groove a braille message from the estuary's bed. Phoenician gondoliers once raced fogbanks like this, their oars slapping water clocks till dawn. Your skiff bumps the pier, wood groaning like an old dog denied the bed. The fog retreats westward, a whipped cur dragging its belly over tidal flats. Your nets hang slack, kelp-draped, and reeking of yesterday's failure. A rotten plank crumbles underfoot, its splinters whispering of the Little Ice Age's hungry winters. Historians still argue whether medieval fishers blamed dwindling catches on climate or God's distaste for lutefisk. You spit, your saliva arcs silvery, a miniature version of the Thames. Frost fares, doomed tightrope walkers. Something glints in the mud, a coin worn smooth as a baby's fontanelle. 18th century Marseille sailors believed such coins were the ferryman's change, proof you'd outrun death's toll. You pocket it anyway, its edges warm against your thigh. The pier stretches ahead, warped boards mimicking a drunkard's spine. Your shadow stretches thin black taffy pulled by the rising sun. Reeds shiver in the sudden light, their roots clutching drowned Roman nails. You spot a crow's nest in the shallows, the kind Baltic pirates rigged with crow-skull weather vanes. 3 minnows dart through its ribs, living stitches in a dead thing's bones. Your stomach growls, a sound the Benedictines would have transcribed as Gregorian chant. Monks in Cornwall once farmed lampreys for Lent. Their abbey ledgers reeked of eel slime and buyer's remorse. A tin cup floats past, enamel peeling like sunburned skin. You snag it, half hoping for mirage whiskey, find only brine and a dead mayfly. 19th century Liverpool pubs served estuary grog, saltwater cut with turpentine and regret. You lob the cup skyward, watch a gull catch it mid-plunge. The bird squawks, a sound between a laugh and a death rattle. Your boots find the marsh path, sphagnum moss sighing under each step. 16th century herbalists prescribed peat mud for gout, a treatment involving leeches and regrettable chanting. You consider stripping, letting the muck suck toxins from your pores. But the cold nips, your shirt clings like a jilted bride. A child's kite tangles in a dead oak silk, flapping like a half-hearted surrender. Mongol warriors flew such kites to measure wind patterns, their strings knotted with wolf teeth. You climb bark biting your palms to snap the string. The kite spirals east, a drunken swallow chasing dawn. Your blistered hands smell of pine resin and someone else's nostalgia. The fishing hut appears, its door ajar, hinges screaming. Inside, your cot sags under mildew's embrace. A rusted scale hangs from a rafter, needle stuck at 3 kilos. Byzantine merchants weighted such scales. With lead customs agents carried swords and suspicion in equal measure. You collapse onto the mattress. Straw pokes through fabric, ghost fingers tracing your spine. Through the cracked window, the estuary winks, mercury bright. Dutch engineers once plotted to drain these wetlands, their blueprints eaten by muskrats. You close your eyes. The tide's rhythm syncs with your pulse. Napoleon's chef wrote a paean to marsh ducks, his quill snapping mid-metaphor about confit and imperialism. Sleep comes not as a thief, but a bailiff reclaiming debts. Your dreams smell of tar, and apricots the scent of a Genoese widow's mourning gloves. Historians still argue whether the lost village of Dunwich sank due to storms or collective ennui. You don't care, your snore rattles the scale, its needle trembles at 0. Outside, the last fog tendrils dissolve. A cormorant dives, its shadow rippling across your doorstep. Tiny crabs emerge, sideways scribbles in the damp sand. Dawn hardens into day, the sky now banal as a provincial mayor's portrait. You don't stir when the door creaks open, wind or something leaning on the jamb. Salt crusts your lips, a makeshift ossuary. The estuary exhales one long, wet sigh, and finally, you sleep. Dawn's blush fades to a murmur, pale gold, seeping through salt-crusted glass. Your fingers uncurl sand grains, escaping like mini hourglasses spent. The estuary stills, its surface, now a dented pewter plate. Dutch engineers once sketched canals here, their compasses slipping in marsh mud. You exhale, your breath of fog that never quite lands. Moss cushions the hut's threshold, velvet green, swallowing your footprints whole. A cormorant preens on the broken dock, each feather oiled by millennia of fish greed. Your eyelids droop. The bird's silhouette blurs into a monastic scribe's quill. Medieval copyists dipped pens in squid ink. Their manuscripts smelled of desperation and low tide. The scale's needle wobbles, air currents nudging it toward nothingness. Your bones settle, sinking into straw that remembers summer fields. Heat rises from the peat floor, ancestor warmth from Vikings' winter fires. Someone hums, or maybe it's the wind strumming frayed rope lines. Moonlight leaks through chinks in the wall, liquid mercury mapping your face. Carthaginian sailors navigated by similar beams. Their Chinese letter, swallowed by jealous waves. You count heartbeats, each thud a pearl dropped into dark water. The cot's groan becomes a cello's lowest note, the kind played at Habsburg funerals. Dried kelp crumbles near your boot, aroma of forgotten feasts. Your tongue traces salt-cracked lips, tasting both Atlantic and childhood tears. A lone heron glides past, its shadow stitching the marsh to the sky. Silence pools in the hut's corners, thick as alchemist's syrup. Even the crabs pause, their sideways scuttles hushed by starfall. Your blanket weighs less than a sparrow's sigh, yet holds you firmer than any vow. When the gulls finally quiet their throats, stuffed with dawn, you slip deeper. The estuary's breath matches yours in out, a pendulum losing momentum. Dark curls around you, not black, but the blue of well water at midnight. Something brushes your forehead, damp kelp, a moth. You'll never know. The tide retreats, taking its ticking and treasures elsewhere. Your last thought dissolves, a sugar cube in chamomile tea. Morning waits patient as a fisherman's widow. But for now, only the marsh's wet heartbeat and your bones learning to float.